morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. I don't know if anybody's going to be watching this. Uh, I have nothing to do, and my brain is tired of watching. I'm going to play some games. We're going to listen to some YouTube videos. I'm going to react as much as I can.
AOC. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I don't know if you can make it up. You can make it up here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Of course, thank you for having me.
We were local, not far from Congress, so we arranged it all. This is a new media company. Cara's been talking to me about media, theory, vision. And let's talk about old media. You have had a very unique relationship with the media. When I thought tonight we talk about Zatteo, media, the future, who better to talk to than a politician who has a very unique relationship? In fact, 2 months after you arrived in Congress, the AP ran a story headlined, "Hero or Villain? Ocasio-Cortez remains a media fixation," in which they cited a study showing stories about you online got more shares, more comments, more likes than even then Speaker Nancy Pelosi. How has your personal experience of that intense media spotlight shaped your own view of our mainstream media?
Oh man, I mean tremendously. And it's actually not just the extremely intense experience of having to be under this inordinate amount of scrutiny and attention through media because it was incentivized by, all of this fervor, but also equally informed by the total absence and lack of coverage of our primary before I won as well. And the total absence and squashing of stories and, the silence that went on. I mean, I was actually quite radicalized afterwards by all of this media narrative that happened after I won, where people said she came out of nowhere.
All right, I guess we'll
no
try
one
it.
saw her coming.
No.
I had
Try it
hour-long
again.
interviews with Politico, the New York Times, many of the same outlets that claim that I came from nowhere had actually interviewed me for hours and decided not to run with these stories. And so going from that silence to this just almost like this frothing at the mouth, I mean, articles about when I got my hair cut, I mean, things that do not matter to people, right? But was incentivized because all of a sudden it was good algorithmically or for, whatever it may have been for them, was very informative. And also, that was also a time where I found it very important for me to at times bypass these channels and use my own voice.
So you just preempted my next question, which is you do go on a lot of late night comedy shows, you do Instagram lives, you quote tweet at certain journalists if they're saying something you disagree with or you think is wrong. Is that you trying to control your own narrative, try and cut out the media middleman to go directly to your voters? And if so, what do you say to critics who say it's not healthy in a democracy for politicians to be able to just bypass the media?
I think it's not healthy in a democracy for there to be false narratives that are allowed to be perpetuated because they're incentivized by one, political force or another. And this is not to say that there's no place for journalism. Of course, it is a bedrock of any functioning democracy. But it is to say that there can't just be one gatekeeper of information. And as a public official, I should be held accountable by the press. And I also believe that I have the right to tell my own story as well, and the public can weigh, all of these facts for themselves. But I do think that experience of having to look at myself through the funhouse mirror of the narrative war that happens on ink and paper, it's not always the same objectivity that is often claimed.
No,
right?
that's for sure.
And I remember. I actually didn't see it live, but because
Sharp.
my election results were announced and it was just pure chaos. But looking back, it was like 2 years afterwards, I saw this clip, I think of NBC breaking the news, and it was like rabid defeats, you know, I mean, oh, but I'm, I'm exaggerating, but it was treated as though this is national emergency, like defeats the next heir to the Speaker
Yes.
of the House. Out, you know, this country is going to hell in a handbasket, and it was this just fervor that was so beyond what I think was the truth of the situation.
So given since then you've called out the media as you are tonight for false narratives, if you had to change one thing right now about our mainstream media, about how it covers the news, the politics, the election race, what would it be?
I think it's too melting. I think that it's so, at least our political news is so deeply shaped by how people feel here. And I mean, I know this is kind of a big thing to say, but it truly is. I mean, I feel this way as when I see how a lot of my colleagues' views are shaped. A lot of people here, you know, because of the fundraising model in Washington and our elections, you spend all day, I mean, I don't, but you spend all day, most people spend all day on the phone, 4 hours, dialing for dollars.
Yes.
But when you do that, that process is actually hearing what people's views and opinions are. But then you're hearing the views and opinions of people of a class that can afford to cut a $2,500, $500, $600 check like it's nothing. And so you get this very narrow perspective about what most people think. And I think there's a similar phenomenon often that happens with our political coverage, where people, and very often the narrative is, was someone running too far to the left or too far to the right, as opposed to, did someone have a more functional campaign? Was their operation better or not? Which is never, ever discussed. If someone loses, it's because they were too radical, not that they didn't knock on doors or run a functional or competent operation. And so I think sometimes the one thing that I would change would be for people to operate and also perhaps cross-pollinate reporting more. I think having a political
Outside of
piece.
Well, that has its dangers too. You had the New York Times for 4 years saying, let's go talk to Trump voters in a diner, which didn't really work out for us either. That has,
Yeah, but it's all political reporting,
yes,
right?
that's true. So let's go beyond the Beltway. Gaza, in my view, has been a major media fail. Not just the failure to hold Israel to account for what it's doing, but the failure to humanize Palestinians on our screens. And today, in the opening monologue for my new show, I referenced an Intercept study which showed how the words massacre and slaughter are used almost exclusively for Israeli victims of Palestinian violence and not Palestinian victims of Israeli violence. And I happen to think that's not just dehumanizing, it's racist. And I wonder, A, do you agree with that? And B, do you think it's deliberately done?
I do think that that there absolutely is. I mean, institutional racism informs all our institutions. It is subconscious. It is foundational. That is what it is. And it's not to say that there is like this one individual that at the top of an organization that has explicit intent. It's just this is coverage like coverage means misogynistic by default. It means, you know, racist by default. The use of passive voice when a Palestinian is killed. The use of passive voice when a black person is killed by the police. Passive voice is reserved for the marginalized. And these practices are normalized. And so I think that who or what is deemed controversial is often at the core of these unjust decisions and coverage. You know, what is deemed controversial often tends to be issues relating to race, to gender. You know, these are what is seen as hot buttons, but half of our country is female, LGBT plurality, or color.
It's interesting you mentioned the passive voice. That has been on display for the last 6 months. Like, there was a BBC headline about a man who lost, I think, 103 members of his family. And the headline was just, he lost 103 members of his family. Where did he lose them? Down the back of a couch? Like,
Absolutely.
tell us who killed them. And it took 33 paragraphs for the BBC to suggest Israel may have killed 103 members of his family. You were an early voice in Congress calling for a ceasefire. You did an interview with me on MSNBC in which you talked about war crimes in Gaza very early on, and you rightly won a lot of praise from pro-Palestinian activists for that. But some of them were upset that you didn't use the G word right at the start, genocide. And then on March 22nd, you give this very fiery speech on the House floor in which you say, quote, "If you want to know what an unfolding genocide looks like, open your eyes." How did you get to that point? How hard a decision was that for you to accuse Israel of genocide in Gaza, given how most of the rest of your congressional party are not with you on that issue, of course?
Well, I think to me, this is not, and I know for most people, all people, this is not a term that we throw around. We are talking about an accusation of atrocity on a scale that is not to be seen, should not be seen ever. So we're talking about a generational crime, massive scale. And that has very specific parameters of intent, of how it unfolds. And it also, I think, that conversation also is in the context of my role as a decision maker.
Okay.
And how I
I'm done
try
fucking
to
around in that area.
operate and apply pressure to stop all of this from happening, and particularly halt U.S. of this. And so, for me, I believe that it was very important to speak to this, that I had to not say this to check off a box, but to
I'm
create
gonna hide in this
a legitimate,
runoff.
weighty argument that would have influence inside and outside.
Get some shields
And
going.
But
After
right now,
Hello,
as of
my
right now tonight,
one
do you
viewer
believe the United
that
States
I'm
government, the Biden administration, is
possible
complicit
could
in
be
a
a bot.
genocide?
I
Who
believe
knows?
that the ongoing famine that we are seeing and the forced famine of Gazans constitutes an unfolding genocide. And if we continue to enable that
AOSP is spitting straight
the
fire
complete
right now.
withholding of aid, the starvation of nearly 2 million people, this is will be what have happened. And we've seen this in Rwanda,
Yes.
in Bosnia.
So you
and-
said in your speech, you referred to
There you
Joe
go.
Biden at the start as a decent man, but then later in the speech you said a genocide looks like, quote, decent people who do nothing or too little too late.
Yep.
Is that a reference to Joe Biden, that he's a decent man who is doing nothing or doing too little too late?
I think when we see how genocides unfold, they happen not just with intent, but they happen with exactly this kind of
How did it happen? Well, it started gradually and then
this
suddenly.
almost invoking of uncertainty. We need to see more. We need to wait. No,
Stuff
it's not
starts
until
happening
it is
and you
too
don't
late.
Yes.
pay
And when
attention to
I
it.
think about my tipping
Then
point,
suddenly you're
that's
not a
part of
democracy.
what has compelled me. Is that I did not,
That's what's
especially as we saw
happening
these
right
reports come out about
Oh, somebody was
what
shooting at me.
what the runway
Shooting
of
at me.
famine would be, what the toll would be if we waited just days. I had felt I do not want to say this after it is done, because then it will have been too late.
When you talk about enabling, our enabling constitutes mainly arms sales. It's a big
What
part
you
of our
doing, girl?
enabling. Number one, did you ever imagine that Nancy Pelosi would come out for
whatever.
conditions on arms sales, of all people? And number two, post this weekend with the Iranian attack on Israel,
Peace
what,
out.
what are you saying to colleagues who say, well, of course
We
we have
running.
to arm Israel now? What are you saying to the Jared Moskowitzes and Josh Gottheimers?
Well, on your first note,
We
It-
will see
I do think it's
what we
important
can
for people to take a pause and realize how
Okay,
much
there's
of
a
a
shotgun.
dramatic
Oh, I like
sea
twin
change there
pistols.
has been. The mere notion or suggestion
Twin
of
pistols is
conditioning U.S.
fun.
military aid to Israel was unthinkable 7 months ago. Unpolitically unthinkable. Never in the history of the United States have we had a conversation like this. And the fact that, as you mentioned, that even Nancy Pelosi is now signing on to letters about this, we have to understand this is a generational change. Secondly, as to your second point, what we say to folks who resist this is that if we want safety in this
Tree.
region, we have to condition U.S. military aid, which we do to every country in the world, by the way.
That wasn't weird at
It's
all.
actually stopping the exemptions instead of creating one that we're talking about. And it's the creation of this exemption
There is everybody,
that
man.
has contributed, in my view, to destabilizing the region. Because when we say you can do anything you want with this, and as we've seen, when there are leaders in the region who will do and will break international law and norms, um, we are having a hand in that. And the good news about it is that I do believe, I hope, that we are getting to a point where this is no longer a fringe position. More and more people are
Do you worry that Israel, as a critic of Israel, do you worry that Israel is trying to start a war in the Middle East to distract from Gaza, trying to start a war with Iran? There was the attack on the consulate in Syria, which the Iranians claim they were retaliating for. How worried are you about the Israel-Iran war that America gets dragged to by this threat?
I can't speak to the intent. I don't know if it is volatile decision making. It is difficult to generally get into the mind of
Come
not
on,
just
Bubba.
one individual, but a cabinet, a government that has its own internal incentives as well that they are responding to within the politics of Israel as well. But what I do know is that this is not safe. And what I do know is that whether intentionally or unintentionally, this is an escalatory environment. And our responsibility, in my belief, is to continue to de-escalate
Oh, you
of,
suck.
of what is a very volatile situation.
Oh, I died.
And I believe the president made some actions this weekend, and it actually showed and demonstrated the value of conditions, saying we will not support this. And what it led to was a de-escalation.
What do you say to a young progressive or an Arab American who says to you, I just can't vote for Biden again after what he's enabled in Gaza? What do you say to them?
I mean, I think everyone comes to this prospect and this conversation with a different history, different background, what they bring. You know, for an individual Palestinian American that has had their family killed, there is nothing. I mean, I am not here to lecture anyone. I also think that this election is more, in my personal view, I believe this election is about more than the president. And also, it's not just one election that's happening. We're having hundreds of elections. The balance of Congress, the balance of the House, the balance of the Senate, and the presidency. And I have a vested interest in protecting democracy, not just here domestically, but globally. And it isn't, I truly do not believe this as a lesser of two evils type of situation. I think about what conditions do I want to be organizing under in the next 4 years.
Yeah, I think the bus
You
driver.
can look at both of these individuals oppositionally as
I'm
well,
such a nice guy.
depending on what issue you have. But I would rather, even in places of stark disagreement, I would rather be organizing under the conditions of Biden as an opponent on an issue than Trump, who is not, he seeks to dismantle American democracy. And I am taking that personally very seriously, because we will not be able to organize for any movement towards anything if we are facing the jailing of dissidents. I mean, this is the kind of authoritarianism that he threatens.
Fascism.
And we have to take it seriously.
Well, we are at Zateya. One of the missions is to stand up for democracy and not pretend that it's a partisan issue. Thank you so much for taking my questions. We have a little bit of time to take some questions from the audience. If you want to wait for the microphone to come to you, stick your hand up and we'll try and come to you. In the corner, right there, right at the back.
Driving.
Hi, good evening. My name is Zeki Barzanji. It's a pleasure to be here to see you all. I'm half Arab American, half South Asian American Muslim, and my question kind of builds off of Maggie's question, which is a lot of folks in my communities tend to be immigrant Muslims, tend to live in the suburbs, can be, on average, pretty well off. I hear a refrain from them saying things like, but when it comes to policies, Democrats and Republicans pretty much are the same. And therefore, there is disinterest, there's dissatisfaction. My personal view is that for people who live in the suburbs, for people who are on average well off, it's true. The policy differences between the parties are not the same, or are the same. But we have to dig deeper than that. And what I've always loved about the way that you communicate policy differences is that you break it down in a way that really reaches and transcends people's own personal circumstances. So what would you say to communities like mine
Driving
who
crazy.
have this visceral reaction right now to thinking that both sides of the spectrum are the same because they only look at a very narrow set of policies as the determining factor?
Well, I mean, I think there are certain policies that could be more different. If you're gay, really big difference between the two parties. If you're a woman that cares, or or a person with a uterus that cares about having bodily autonomy, there is a stark difference. And by the way, if you're from a state like mine, New York, just because we live in New York State, we have the right to an abortion at a state level. If they pass a national abortion ban, it will overturn a New Yorker or Californian's right to be able to access reproductive health. And people act like these are social issues, but they are not if you are over half the country. Because having a child against your will, being forced to have a child against your will, is one of the most profoundly economically shaping things that can happen to you in your lifetime. To whether you're able to access health care or not as a trans person I think it's sometimes these things
Yeah, I don't know
are
how you
treated as
can
pet issues,
deny people
but they are
the right to
some of the
health
most
care.
deeply transformative
But hey,
economic
you know what?
forces
Let's just
in a person's life.
let the
And
insurance
so I don't
companies do
think-
whatever they want.
It's real. It's
Steal
real.
money
It's
from
not
us all
just
they
a
want.
wedge issue. It is
You know,
our life.
we pay tons in
I
taxes
often hear people saying,
and we get no
we
benefit.
survived Trump once. We can survive it
Yeah,
again. I'm like,
everybody
no,
wants
literally,
to
half a million
act
Americans
like
died from COVID.
Yes.
There's
Many
some
of them
sort
didn't
of
need to die.
benefit
Literally,
to
Americans did
having
not survive Trump. Should we take
frickin'
another question from the back? Yeah,
socialized health.
microphone right behind.
Independent health insurance.
Hi. The question I had to you is I've been watching you throughout the whole time you've had your term, but I often hear the discourse at work is, yeah, we kind of get where she's coming from. It's just the way she delivers that message. I'm going to call that out. That's just sexism, misogyny. I mean, I don't need that part to explain. But
Don't
how do you
steal
respond
my
to?
car.
How do you think we should respond to somebody like that? And I'm going to pause you just there, Mehdi. I want to ask you a slight question as well. Briefly, which is, how do you reach out to the Muslim population to get them out to vote and be interested?
Yeah. I mean, it's true. A lot of it is institutional. This conversation started with institutional misogyny, sexism, racism, etc. First of all, I can't be anyone but me, and I made a deal with myself when I first ran for office and when I won. I needed to know on what conditions I would leave. And for me,
Can dig it.
the moment that I could no longer be
Where
myself,
did I leave my car?
I
Back
could
here?
no longer have this job. I made that deal with myself. And so, when people tell me that, I don't know what to tell you. I'm a Puerto Rican from the Bronx. That's what you're gonna get, and that's what it is. But I think on the other part too, I tend to, when some of that unconscious bias comes up, the most effective way that I know is to respond to it with a question, which is, what about that do you think is inappropriate? Or what about that do you think is inferior? And prompting a process of self-reflection. And a person may respond defensively in the moment, but I often find a couple weeks later, or sometimes months later, they'll come back and they'll say, I really gave thought to what you were talking about, and I actually think I've reframed it. But we've seen questions like this happen all the time, right? Around so many people, and about your boss, or people you work with, and it's really, that's that structural kind of dismantling of bias that we all have to do.
And just in answer to your question to me, two things I would say. I speak to a lot of Muslim crowds. I've been speaking to Muslim audiences the last few weeks while traveling and promoting and Ramadan. I would say, number one, half the world's Muslims don't have a right to vote. So those of us who do and take take it lightly, we're really letting down the entire global community, just from a global perspective. And number two, someone asked me earlier, does my faith inform before the event, I was talking to someone and they said, does your faith inform your politics? And it does. As a Muslim, my politics are all about standing up for the downtrodden, my neighbors, the community, people other than myself or the suburbs who need help. And therefore, that wasn't a dig at Zeki. Zeki doesn't support the suburbs. But my point is that vision that says just think about yourself, for me, is a very un-Islamic vision. And therefore, it's my Muslimness and my Islamic faith that says go out, vote, organize, protest, be politically engaged. Let's take one last question and we're out of time. Gentleman there at the back. Oh, I know that gentleman. That's Mujahid Ali. Okay. This will be a curveball. All right, here we go.
Congratulations.
We may not want to end on this question.
Congratulations, Mehdi.
After this.
I promise will not embarrass you with this question. But a question for Congresswoman AOC. We're in D.C. right now, corridors of power, and with the threat of Trumpism, we still see a framing of both sides, which I believe is an asymmetrical framing. And with corridors of power, whether it's media, whether it's business, whether it's politics, we still hear, well, you have to reach out, just do both sides analysis. And I'm curious, with the threat that is looming, and you can disagree with me, what do you recommend for the Democratic Party? How much do you reach out, and how much do you say resist?
I mean, I know everyone's going to say, well, of course you're going to say this, which is leaning towards, not just resisting, but telling the truth.
All right, screw it. Taking
I
this
mean,
truck.
there is an enormous dishonesty at times when we talk about both sides. The reach for an equivalence where there is none is fundamentally dishonest. And I think we need to be clear about that. This idea that we're going to, he's fascist and he's kind of old. I don't know. That's dishonest. It's dishonest. And
I
my
hit you with a truck.
it actually belies really awful intent.
The far left wants healthcare, and the far right likes Nazis.
I see this too when people,
They try and compare you to MTG. How do you feel about that?
she's not on the level, okay? Like, that's just what it is. No, I mean, it's not.
Fuck
you. But whatever. But here's what I do think
Fuck
is
you. Fuck you.
that
Fuck you. Fuck you.
that more,
Won't anybody chat?
I would say,
Please?
your establishment,
Someone say something in my chat.
or the establishment, however we're calling this now. But we all know what we're talking about.
Nobody wants
Is
to
that I
talk to
actually think
me.
there's an increased realization of this. Because
Yeah, I
in
don't
the
care.
last several electoral cycles, the number of persuadables has narrowed down to nearly nothing. And if you're in a position like mine, where it's all a numbers game, where am I going to get the votes that I need to win? Like, let's just get brass tacks about it. That's how 435 people in the House think. Where am I going to get my numbers? And what they've seen is that persuadable amount is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's nearly nothing. And so they know now that increasingly every race is about turnout, base turnout. You have your people, and the math is going in this direction more than it ever has before. Before, you would see this disproportionate lean, towards the right, I would say, within Democrats, because those persuadables were more reliable voters. And so you don't know how they're going to vote, but you know they are going to vote. As opposed to this base that sometimes they vote and sometimes they don't, and it's unreliable. You don't know if they're actually going to vote or not. And so trying to lean to these folks when you don't even know if they're going to turn out on election day was actually seen or calculated as risky, as opposed to the less risky approach of trying to appeal to someone and win someone that you know for sure is going to turn out. And we see that reflected, I think, historically in this both sides framing from elected officials. But now there is a shift in that understanding because people are looking at their numbers, and the numbers of persuadable voters have dramatically shrunk. And so people now understand that we have to turn out our base.
Fall
And a big part of that
through the
in the Democratic Party is a
sky.
coalition. And I
Let's
think
have
a lot of that
fun.
too is telling the
Because we're
truth.
gonna die.
Now, there are different truths that compel different on issues, right? Some people are really moved on how much their property taxes are going to be. to the suburban issue. Some people are really moved on foreign policy issues. Some people are very much moved on immigration. But I do think that there is a moving away, at least in terms of those who are running for office, from trying to both sides everything. But it really is a major issue, because when we talk about equivocating between two things that are in no way comparable,
Scandalous.
it is dishonest. And it runs, to me, contrary to what the spirit of journalism is, which is trying to get to the truth of the matter.
Apparently I'm
and
trying
sometimes
to
that
take
means
myself
one
out.
person is more right than the other. And it doesn't make you biased.
Yeah.
It means that we checked everyone's claims, and one person maybe was not as honest or not as grounded as the other.
Yeah, there's not two sides to Holocaust denial or climate change denial or election denial.
And that absurdism is
Yeah.
what we've
Get it,
paved
Maddie?
the way. There's been this momentum that's paved the way to that because of that practice.
So one thing Zeteo will never do is both sides journalism, I can assure you. We're going to stick to what is true. We're not going to say hot is cold, up is down, black is white. That's for sure. We're out of time. Thank you so much to Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Conversation with your sister.
Trump must be panicking because he held a rally in Pennsylvania this morning
Sorry, Luke.
and spent so much time on election lies. He even admits that those around him don't want him to be doing this, but he charges forward with it anyways. I continue to say, even though this election could go either way, if Trump loses.
My name is Mehdi Hassan. I'm the host, editor-in-chief, CEO of Zeteo. I'm joined for this election dialogue on Substack, finally at 8:15. We are 15 minutes late to talk about the most important topic in America. Tells you everything, by the one and only Steve Schmidt from The Warning on Substack, former GOP strategist, White House strategist, never Trumper. Steve, how are you feeling about this election? It's 8:15. We were supposed to start at 8. Everything in life is stressful right now.
Everything is stressful. We're a little bit behind, but thank you everybody out there for joining. When we talked about doing this, what we decided we were going to talk about was fascism.
Yeah.
And this threat, talk about it as a fascist threat. Talk about the media that hasn't called this out for what it is. And so it was providential almost that the news today is John Kelly, the former Marine 4-star general, the White House chief of staff, comes out. There's audio recordings, and he makes it clear he's a man who knows history, knows something of the world, knows something of the wars of the 20th century. And he says the guy I worked for as chief of staff is an autocrat, is a fascist who doesn't believe in democracy. It's a big deal.
Yeah. It's a very big deal, but you might not believe it from the front pages of the national newspapers today, because I believe it didn't really make the top headline on any front page in America, which tells you everything about 9 years in, our media is still very broken. It's the reason I went and set up my own media company. When I launched Zeteo, Steve, people said, why are you doing your own media company? And I said, 2 reasons. Number one, and it's probably one you disagree with me on, and we could have another conversation about this, is the genocide in Gaza. And number 2 is the fascist threat here in America. People don't use the G word, genocide. They don't use the F word, fascism. And in August 2020, Steve, I did my first ever show on MSNBC. I guest hosted for Chris Hayes. And it was just after Portland and the George Floyd riots, the protests, the attacks, police grabbing people off the street. And I said, this is fascism. And I used the F word that night. And people thought I was being hysterical. People said, this is Trump derangement syndrome. He's not a fascist. Stop misusing words. This is hyperbole. And yet here we are, 4 years later. 4 years later, and as you say, Marine General, former Chief of Staff, John Kelly, saying he's a fascist. Not just John Kelly. Mark Milley, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Trump's top general during his term, says he is a fascist to the core. Right? This is what's going on right now. 2 American generals, not Democrats, not liberals, not leftists, generals, small C conservatives, maybe big C conservatives, saying the guy they worked with for several years is a fascist. How is that not the biggest story in America, Steve? Why is it not on every front page?
I don't have an answer for that other than that all of these news organizations are corporate owned, and that tremendous amount of fear from a litigation perspective, which is a false fear. The lawyers are in the room, or from a retaliation perspective. If you're the CEO of Comcast, you have a lot of equities for your business that involve license issues with the FCC. MSNBC is a very small piece, right?
Yep.
Of your really a negligible piece of your bottom line. So are you going to allow an outspoken host to tank your business because the guy in the White House is making very clear if he's offended by anybody on the air, he's going to try to remove the license. He's going to try to take some punitive action. He may punish them on some merger that's declined. But whatever it is, very quickly, fear is attendant with fascism, right? It's hand in glove. And so you have reporters who are afraid. You have retired generals who are afraid. I thought one of the most remarkable stories this month was Mitt Romney, Republican nominee for president in 2012, and he's talking about, I can't protect my grandchildren from the retribution that's coming under Trump's doctrine of collective punishment. It is extraordinary, and I don't understand the judgment that doesn't lead the news with experts, with on the front page that describes what this is, that explicates it, because it's deadly.
It is, and Mitt Romney, by the way, of course, we know from the Atlantic piece that McKay Coppins did for the book, was spending thousands of dollars of his own money to protect his family after the impeachment vote. And he pointed out that a lot of House Republicans said they couldn't pay that money to protect their family, so they voted not to impeach Donald Trump because they literally feared for their life. That should have been a bigger story, that in the United States of America, members of Congress were unable to vote to impeach a president from their own party because they thought they were going to get killed. One Republican whose name I forget, was it Don Bacon? I can't remember which Republican one, says his wife started sleeping with a gun next to her bed. Insane times, right? Insane to see this in the United States of America. By the way, I would say one thing about the media folks. The folks who are, by the way, we've got 770 people joining right now. Appreciate you all joining us. Loads of you are leaving comments. There's far too many to read them out all at once. But Clive says he didn't know we were doing a chat. He found us by accident. He's glad we did. I think we got to this chat by accident as well. So I'm glad we got here. Penny Howell says, "Did I miss anything?" No, you didn't. We just got started, Penny. And somebody else says, "Love both of you guys." I can't remember their name, but thank you very much. So
driving
back to the chat.
around.
See, my position is
Crazy.
the people who are afraid. Okay, you're afraid, right? And there are journalists who are afraid. There are politicians who are afraid. They're not the ones I'm really
I'll
bothered
take that.
about. I'm worried about the ones
Here we go. More
are just
driving.
in denial, right? There are people out there, Steve, on the left and the right, who even today, I was talking to a friend of mine recently, he said, "Oh, he's not Hitler, he's not quoting Hitler, just stop it." There are people who say you're just exaggerating, it's hyperbole. And look, I'm in a Muslim community and in a left movement that's very unhappy with Kamala Harris right now, as you know, over Gaza, and rightly so in my view. And a lot of them say we can't vote for Harris, and I'm having these debates about, do you vote for Harris? But people want to vote third party. But the people who say they're voting Trump, I say, are you crazy? Like, Trump is worse on every level, including for Gaza. And they say, oh, Mehdi, you're exaggerating. And I just think at this point, the guy's defense secretary says he's not unfit for
Here we
office.
go. We drive.
His national security advisor says
We
he's not fit for
drive.
office. His economic advisor says he's dumb as shit.
Wrong way.
Right? His chief of staff says he's a fascist and he worships
Here we go.
Hitler. His
Here we
head of the
go.
joint chairman of the chairman of the joint chiefs of staff says he's a fascist.
It's
to his
me,
core.
Maganito.
Go through the list. His press secretary, his deputy press secretary, his people who work closest with him are saying the guy's unfit for office. The guy's a threat to democracy. Trump himself keeps going on Fox. Steve, have you seen these clips on Fox where Fox
There's
hosts
a
say,
helicopter.
"You didn't really mean to threaten all those people, right?" He goes, "Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did." They try and walk him off the ledge. Have you seen Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity? They're like, "You didn't really mean to be a dictator." He goes, "No, I didn't."
And she's like, and Laura Ingraham is right, requesting in with him. He's basically, no, you don't mean.
Oh no.
You don't mean.
But yes,
Like
I fucking
76
do.
of us.
And Trump's response was, no, we got to do it.
Yes.
We got to do it. We got to punish it. We're gonna
Even
be
Fox is like trying to downplay this shit. And I think it'll be the first time someone took over a country and brought in authoritarian
Oh,
rule
you hunt
without
monk and
hiding.
noogadoo.
Right? I think Viktor Orban and Narendra Modi and all these other authoritarian leaders we look around the world, they kind of hit their motives and continue to do so. Trump is the first person I can think of in a long time who's like, yeah, I want to be a dictator and I want to terminate the Constitution. And guys, if you vote for me, you don't have to vote for me again in 4 years. I mean, he's saying it out loud. I don't know what else to say. I'm losing my mind at the complacency and the inertia and the denialism of some in our media and in the general public who say, nah, he doesn't mean that.
Well, there's a couple things, everyone. I say this all the time on the warning. Mehdi and I have talked about this, which is that there is nobody ever in all of history who has made the threats that Trump is making who didn't follow through on them upon taking power. Exactly nobody. Every person who's ever taken political power, riding to power on the crest of a wave of threats and vengeance and grievances and all of it, has always done exactly what they said they were going to do. And so we have this threat that is treated invisibly by the media that's downgraded. I mean, I think that one of the
Time to
things that
swim.
you said is very right. It's this. I've called them for a fascist for a long time now, because historically I know what a fascist is. I understand what
I
fascism
think the
is,
Bush
and it was the
rival.
right thing to call him.
I'm small.
When you call him that precisely, you are accused of being crazy,
Yep.
being hyperbolic, being deranged, being lost, which is another common fascist tactic, right? That the opposition is always illegitimate, not necessarily because it's wrong, but in fascism's take, because you're sick, because you're crazy, because you're disordered, which is why in fascist systems so many political opponents wind up in mental institutions. Um, One of the things that I thought was extraordinary 4 years ago, in the Lincoln Project is a very different deal today than it was, 4 years ago. There's an old saying, that every cause becomes a business, becomes a racket, and it crossed the racket line, some time ago with every penny goes into the pockets as opposed to the cause. But 4 years ago, when it was playing a big role in the aftermath of the campaign, there were millions of dollars of flyers that were distributed in every zip code that I had ever lived in the neighborhoods of every person that I had ever known, calling me a pedophile. And so the revenge, right, that is directed at a person
Yes.
for speaking out and up, which is your God-given right in this country. So whether it's me a couple years ago, whether it's a bomb threat by Caesar Sayoc, Trump bomber, the FBI in my house, I read today, Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. This is the guy who, 44 years of service to the country, who since leaving office has dealt with nothing but death threats directed at him by Donald Trump supporters. So there's this menace in the country, this threat that's hanging over it, this threat of violence. And the lead political reporter of the New York Times, what Maggie Haberman says is, listen, the media doesn't have the tools, right, to cover this. We're just not equipped to do it 9 years in. And I think it's such nonsense. And the number one danger that the country is facing, like in this moment today, 13 days out, is nobody can orient to the threat, because the threat is almost never explained coherently and clearly across a broad spectrum of media outlets as objective fact. Fascism is tangible. It's identifiable. It has a historical record. There are antecedents to the things that Trump is saying, and yet all of it is completely obliterated in the coverage. And yesterday's events are severed, disconnected from what they build to today. So everything is covered as an episodic reality.
100%. You're speaking my language, Steve. The way in which we do this as a half-day quarter day story and then move on and then don't join the dots. We don't talk about Trump. The quote I keep going on and on about is the man put on Truth Social, his ridiculously named social media site, that he's going to terminate the Constitution, right? That was what he said over a year ago.
He did.
Right?
That
should form the basis for every discussion. He has said on record he wants to terminate the Constitution. And therefore, everything flows from that. And somebody said in the chat, well, how can he do that? He's not going to do it on day one. No, he's not going to do it on day one. No one's suggesting he's going to do it on day one. No one's suggesting he's going to build a concentration camp on January 21st. Look at what Orban has done, who Trump worships, who the Republican Party worships. He has consolidated power. He shut down independent judicial institutions, universities, opposition centers of power, media outlets controlled by his friends, right? Using the instruments of the state like Modi in India to send the tax police after your opponents, which we know Trump tried to do in his first term to many people. And I think, look, this is a guy, as you say, the inability of the Times and CNN and NBC and all these media outlets to join those dots, to be clear to the public that this is not just some guy shooting from the hip, but he's a guy who's saying very clearly what he wants to do. He's surrounded himself with people who are of that ilk. There are no Jim Mattis's, John Kelly's, Mark Espers in term 2. There is only the Rick Grenells and the Kash Patels and the Michael Flynns who will be surrounding him, sycophants who believe in the authoritarian vision. And by the way, someone in the comments said earlier that they want this stuff. And I think that's a very underrated part of this story as well. That, you know, for the majority of the country, if you tell them what Trump's up to, I think they will recoil from it. But there is a hardcore minority that actually wants this. That when you say Trump's going to be an authoritarian, they go, yeah, that's what we want. We want a dictator. We want a strong man to clean up the country, to fight crime, to secure the border, to own the libs. So when Trump talks about the left as vermin and lunatics and he's going to deploy the National Guard, that actually doesn't scare a lot of Americans. Maybe 30%, 20% of Americans who say, yes, that is what we want. And I think that's where we have to not just join the dots day to day on the news, but globally too, right? Because this is part of a global authoritarian phenomenon. This is going on in Western Europe. This is going on in Eastern Europe. This is going on in India and Pakistan. This is going on in the Middle East. And I think we have to understand that there is this desire in times of chaos and uncertainty and financial insecurity and mass migration where people are saying, you know what, we prefer the strong man who just cracks down. And I think that's still a minority in America. I do believe that to be the case. But yeah, the media has failed miserably. And it's amazing to me that the Kelly headlines are not the front page of every newspaper in America. Not just the front page, the relentless coverage, right? This is the point. When the media wants to do relentless coverage, it does relentless coverage. When bloody Bill Ackman was leading his crusade against Claudine Gay and Harvard and the Ivy Leagues over college protests, that was a relentless. You look at the New York Times, had like 17 stories on the front page on that one story, right? You had reporters live from the scene. It was a week by week, day by day, 24/7 cycle. And maybe you and I are on different sides of that debate, but the point is, it was a ridiculously overplayed story in the context of America today. The idea that we don't have that, look at the 24/7 coverage Joe Biden's age got, right? Look at he goes and he did a ridiculous debate. I came out that night and said he should probably stand aside. You see the coverage of Biden was intense, right? Multiple op-eds, editorials telling him to stand down, multiple guests on cable news. But we just don't get that with Trump, right? We don't. We compartmentalize. We do a day story and then we move on to the next thing. And that grading of him on a curve that has been the case since 2016 drives me insane. It helped him win an election in 16, and now it could help him win again in 24. The normalization of Trump.
Where are you right now? It's 13 days out. This race isn't over. It's razor close. But are you feeling optimistic or pessimistic?
I'm super pessimistic. I don't think it's Trump's in the bag. I've never believed that. I've always believed it's a 50-50 election. But given it's a 50-50 election and it's on the knife edge, and you know, my team and I today at Zatea, we were like, should we do a feature on the district in Nebraska that could determine the entire election if the election's thrown to the House? Like, those are the discussions we're having about, like 270, 270. Look, 269, 269. I do think it's anyone's race right now. It's 50-50. Clearly on the vibe and momentum, it feels like Trump has it right now. The Harris momentum and energy, I was at the DNC, seems to have faded. You know, and again, this may be somewhere we disagree. I think her decision to go after Haley voters and campaign with Liz Cheney in Michigan of all places in the final 2 weeks was not a wise move. Right? I know people in Detroit and Dearborn. There are people on this chat posting messages saying we can't vote for a genocidal candidate. Gaza is a huge issue for young voters, people of color, Muslim Americans, Arab Americans. If she's not going to shift policy on it, which she clearly isn't, The idea that you go campaign with Cheney, and by the way, Steve, we can laugh at Donald Trump being the dumbest man in the world, but when it comes to savvy messaging at the right time, you got to hand it to him. He's just put out a statement today, like he did yesterday, saying, why would Muslims vote for Harris when she's campaigning with Liz Cheney, who launches wars, and Dick Cheney, who did Iraq, right? That, unfortunately, penetrates into Muslim and Arab American communities. It works. We may remind ourselves that Donald Trump's the man who hired John Bolton. Donald Trump's the man who killed Qasem Soleimani. Donald Trump dropped the biggest bomb in America's arsenal in Afghanistan. Donald Trump almost started the nuclear war with North Korea. Unfortunately, Americans are amnesiacs. They bought into this bullshit that Trump's time was a time of peace. He was an anti-war president. All bullshit. But he is leaning into that. So I'm a little bit depressed and concerned. I worry where the energy's gone. I saw Tim Walz on the campaign trail just a couple of days ago calling Elon Musk a dipshit. I would like a bit more of that Tim Walz. I just want a bit more energy, speaking off the cuff, going out there and really, energy in some campaign. I don't need Hillary Clinton 2.0 from 2016, and that's why I'm worried we're heading in this last 13 days. I hope I'm wrong.
So let's play it out that Trump wins. It's almost certain at this hour that you're going to have a Republican Senate, though I think it's possible that Cruz goes down.
Inshallah, as we Muslims say.
Right, inshallah. So let's say we had a Republican Senate, we got Trump in the White House. You will see a repeal of the filibuster.
Nobody wants to watch me.
And all of these wacky Trump nominees who never would have been able to be confirmed are going to suddenly be confirmed into positions of grave responsibility. Democrats will control the House. They'll control the purse strings. I think there's 90+ thousand governments that have elected governments in the United States. All of them have 3 lawyers. We're the most complex society on earth, right? So the descent into the Trump Reich is going to be bumpier than I think the MAGA fanatics think it is. That being said, you will have very quickly, I think, a purge in the military of senior officers. You'll have an absolute politicization. You'll have people like General Flynn. You'll have people like Kash Patel. You'll have people like Rick Grinnell. You'll have people like Stephen Miller. And you will very quickly have a law enforcement operation underway that is unprecedented in any of our lifetimes.
Yes.
I mean, we tend to skew a little bit older on these things. If you're a certain age in this country, you remember Elian Gonzalez.
Yes.
And so I'm looking forward to this playing out, right? 15 million times, right?
Insane.
It's obscene. It's insane.
But before you even get to the deportations of undocumented, and of course we know that green card holders, permanent residents, U.S. citizens will be dragged into that. Before we even get to that, I've been saying for a while that if he wins, he invokes the Insurrection Act, he puts the military on the streets on January 20th. What he wanted to do last time round, he had some resistance from the DOJ. Remember they famously, we will all resign if you make the crazy guy AG. That's not going to happen this time. They've got their plans for the Insurrection Act. Again, this is not Mehdi Hassan Leftifter Zateo saying this. This is their own people saying this, right? They're saying this openly. This is what they've briefed to the New York Times. This is what the Center for Climate Reporting, the British outfit who secretly recorded the, what's the name of the guy who was OMB, who might be chief of staff now? I forget his name. The guy who was head of Trump's OMB was saying on this secret recording, well, we've given him a 50-page dossier on how he can use the military from day one. He's going to put the military on the streets. And I keep reminding people of this. In 2020, in the summer of 2020, when there were people outside in Lafayette Square, Trump called Mark Esper and said, why can't you shoot them? Shoot them in the legs. Esper said, we can't do that, sir. Next time round, it will be Defense Secretary Michael Flynn or Kash Patel who says, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir. So when people say, well, Steve, I'm sure you get this a lot. People say, don't be silly. We already had Trump for 4 years. He didn't do anything crazy in the first term. He tried, right? We know he tried because the people around him say he tried. The thing is, we had a few guardrails, a few adults in the room. His administration will have no adults in the room next time. It will have literal children like Kash Patel, who writes children's stories about Trump. It will have a Supreme Court who are his and have told him he has immunity. It will have a Republican Senate, as you say, not led by Mitch McConnell. and it will have a maybe if he gets a Republican House, Steve, it's a trifecta. It's game over. There are no checks or balances. This is a guy. By the way, can you imagine going from Attorney General Merrick Garland, who dragged his feet for 4 years, to the AG who Trump will put in, a Mike Davis type, or even crazy Judge Janine from Fox, who's going to go from day one after Biden and Obama and Harris and Cheney and maybe me and you and everyone else, right? There's going to be, the projection is intense. All the things they've accused Democrats of, weaponizing power, deep state conspiracy,
You're going to see it,
witch
and it's
hunt.
going to be crazy.
All of that is what they're planning to do, right?
And I don't care
accusation
if
is a
I end up
confession
being
from the right.
taken
So you know
down.
that everything they accuse the Democrats of is basically what they have planned. And I think, again, people don't recognize. I have a very wealthy, very intelligent, very educated liberal friend who told me recently, Mehdi, the bureaucracy will stop him. The courts will stop
They're
him.
trying to get
That
rid of the
complacency,
bureaucracy.
I believe, is the greatest gift the Trump campaign could ever expect from the liberal left in this country. The idea that, and this goes back to the famous, it couldn't happen here. America, we're unique. We can't go fascist. This is what happens in banana republics and broken Eastern European countries. I'm telling you, as the immigrant American here, stop being so fucking navel-gazing and, arrogant that America is somehow immune from historical, global, geopolitical trends. It is not. And the Constitution, as great as it is in many ways, was not designed with a Donald Trump in mind. That is very clear.
Nope. There's a great book that I just finished reading. It's called A Village in the Third Reich. And it's the story about the southernmost town in Germany. It's a ski town. And it's a story from 1917 to 1956.
I'll take that nice shotgun
And it's
right
the
there.
tale of what happens when
Right there.
fascism comes to your town. And let's just say it changed it forever, as it will in the United States. Trump is going to have a rally at Madison Square Garden, which was the site, very famously, of the Boone's Gathering. There's a documentary called The Night at the Garden, but you have the George Washington banners that were flanking the stage that night, festooned with swastikas.
Yep.
And that event that night in 1939 was billed as a patriotic evening, right? And there's an apocryphal quote. I think it was attributed apocryphally to Sinclair Lewis. But when fascism comes to America, it'll be wrapped in the flag and carrying the cross. And we're certainly seeing that. We're certainly seeing that play out. If Trump loses, right? If he loses on election night, we'll hear from him like last time, before midnight, and they'll have an indication. The way this works is you'll have a really strong sense on the campaigns. I'll know, you'll know, very, very early in the evening, which way it's breaking. Everyone in the newsrooms is going to know. They're going to be extremely cautious, right? Very slow on calling the states, but there's a momentum to this. There is no real fraud in American elections. These are the cleanest, fairest elections in the world. Trump will go out sometime if he's losing on election night and start to cede the ground that the election was stolen.
Which is what he did last time, if you remember.
Do you think this time, right, that it's an all-in proposition, everybody crosses the river again, like we're doing this again? Or do you think there's a chance, and what do you rate the chance that it just deflates? That people just say, you know what, we're not, no. Like a Lindsey Graham, right, who you'd expect to be.
No, I think it's, I wish.
I don't want anyone to think I'm putting any eggs in the Lindsey Graham basket. I'm just.
No, I wish I could be in team deflation, but I'm not. And I think we've depressed a bunch of folks in the comments. I don't know if you're reading the comments, Steve. We're getting a lot of love from folks. I'm just going to pass on people saying nice things. Although a couple of people pointed out that I wore a light shirt and now they can't read the comments, so I should have worn a darker shirt. Note to myself for a future Substack Live. We now have over 1,300 people watching, so thank you for joining us tonight. Look, I don't want to depress everyone in the comments. Andrew in the comments asked me if I know any nice English women that he can go get married to and move to the UK. Good luck, Andrew. Good luck. Jessica says keep drinking. I'm Muslim, Jessica. I can't even drink away my sorrows. Look, I'm going to be more depressing, and I have to be because I have to be honest with you. I think Trump is going to definitely on the night come out and say we've won. He's going to do the whole red mist bullshit, which is we're in the lead tonight on the counting of votes. Don't let them in the morning show that I'm behind. It's all rigged, even though we know that Republican legislatures in places like Pennsylvania don't allow the votes to be counted when they come in mail-in ballots. Just remind everyone of that. You'll hear a lot of bullshit online from people like Cat Turd saying, why can't we count all the votes on the day? Because Republican legislatures blocked us from doing that. Funnily enough, in Florida, they actually do allow you to count mail-in ballots from the moment you get them. So they actually count quite fast in Republican Florida, but not in the swing states where the Pennsylvania legislature and others have stopped that. So we're going to have Trump do that. This time, unlike last time, he's going to have Vance at his side, unlike Pence. Vance is going to be backing him up, doing the media rounds, pushing this bullshit. By the way, Steve, doesn't it infuriate you that when Vance goes on all these Sunday shows and is asked, you wouldn't have certified the election on January 6, 2021, he goes, no, Pence had the power to stop it. He should have stopped it. Why doesn't a single anchor say to Vance, if that's the case, on January 6, 2025, does current Vice President Kamala Harris have the power to throw out a Trump victory and declare herself president? No one asked that question. Because if the Vice President has the power, then surely Kamala Harris can decide whatever the fuck she wants on January 6, 2025. Anyway, that's an aside. To go back to your point.
Why? But listen, so I think you're a really smart guy, right? And I think you ask great questions. But you don't have to be Albert Einstein to figure out that question, right? Like if you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
That is if you've been around for 5 years, and you're like, I'm going to ask questions that challenge the inherent contradictions because it's all nonsense. It's all nonsense.
Get rid of that car, steal another one.
The simple answer to your question is the people who do these interviews are trained to do them in a certain way.
What is
they're
with
not
the
ready for
bills
advance.
and the
They're
no
not
bill?
ready for the
Huh?
nihilism. They're not ready for
What do
the
you wanna explain
gaslighting.
this
They're
to
not
me?
ready for the gish galloping. They come from a world where they are just culturally and socially not ready for the freaks who go on Sunday shows from MAGA and get in their face and lie all day long. They just don't have the tools for it. To go back to something you said earlier, the media has not adapted over 9 years. Well, some have. You now see George Stephanopoulos do a bit more pushback than he did before, but they still haven't adapted to how you deal with the people who come on air and just say up is down, black is white, hot is cold. To go back to your point about the election night, now, just to make an important point here, I think he will do what he did in 2020, and this time round he will have way more support than he had in 2020 because he spent 4 years building to this moment. The Republican Party is ready to fall in line behind him. The few dissenters that were there in 2020 are no longer there. Right? They've quit the party. They've left the scene. They have no credibility. The party is more fearful of him, to go back to our earlier conversation about standing up to him. His base are way angrier than they were last time. They're full of rage and paranoia that they were robbed in 2020.
What is with how is their building?
And don't forget,
in a no
his
build, huh?
great, his trump card for Trump is this time he controls the world's
This is actually going to be the first time I'll
most
ever
influential
report
one
somebody.
in terms of politics, and that is Twitter, right? Last time round, January 6th happened, and Zuckerberg suspended him, and Dorsey and Twitter suspended him. This time round, Zuckerberg's running for the hills. He's already rolled over. And Musk is 100% on Team Trump, wants a government job, is spending millions of dollars, is living in Pennsylvania. So God help us all.
Like,
we
I'm in
think about
zero
Ruby
bills.
Freeman and Shay Moss, the
Like, what is
two
going
election
on here?
workers from Georgia who had to go into hiding because of the death threats they got from false allegations about suitcases of votes. They just won a case against Giuliani again the other night. By the way, Giuliani said on election night, a drunk Giuliani told Trump, go out and declare victory right now, if you remember. So if you look at Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman, it'll be Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman times 100, Steve. It'll be all over Twitter. It'll be all over social media. Fake stories out of Wisconsin, out of Pennsylvania, out of Georgia, which will be amplified by the world's richest man to 200 million people with no community notes, no corrections. So we're in a very different place to 2020. The media may be slightly more, aware of what's going on than they were in 2020, but you've got social media in chaos. You've got Musk sowing chaos. And you've got a much angrier group of people who are going to be way more violent. January 6th is going to look like a walk in the park compared to what these guys are going to incite this time around. The idea that Donald Trump will concede to a black woman is the stupidest, dumbest thing I've ever heard. He will not.
So what happens?
As I say, it's going to be much more violent than last time. I don't think they're going to wait till January 6th. We're already seeing domestic terror. Let me give you one example. As private citizen Donald Trump, he shut down the entire town of Springfield, Ohio. Shut down the schools, shut down the town hall, 30-odd bomb threats, the Haitian community in fear, kids at school in fear, Republican officials in the town saying, what the hell have you done? That is the power of Donald Trump as a private citizen. Can you imagine Donald Trump as a wannabe president-elect or president? Can you imagine him post-election inciting hate against a town or election worker or election supervisor in some county of America? I think he's going all in. It's his last chance to avoid prison. It's his last chance to be president. And as I say, his ego does not allow him to accept that he was beaten by a black woman who he thinks he uses all sorts of words for her in private and public. He will not accept defeat. And I think this time round, yeah, the levels of violence and violent threats, I'm sorry to say, will be much worse. America is primed for much more violence than it was in 2020 or 2016.
So I agree with you. But I just at a basic personal level, philosophy of life. Everybody, and it's good if this happens at a younger age, needs to hear the word no.
Yeah.
Trump has never heard the word no. It's never stuck. No one has told him no in 9 years.
Yeah.
What I think is one of the most amazing aspects of this whole period is Brett Baer. When you go back, full stop, and this doesn't get enough attention.
Yes. What he did on election night 2020.
He was afraid
yes.
to report
Arizona.
the news to the audience.
Yep.
Right? So I'm just going to take that at face value. I'm going to try to curtail my emotions on it, right? My detestation of it, and say, okay,
yeah,
you whip these people up so much,
yep,
you literally can't report the news to them. But just pushing on, right? You're going to have to report the news to them, right? There's no avoidance of reality, right? So the news.
I think you're being generous to Fox, Steve. I think you're being generous to Fox. They can avoid reporting the news. They're very good at that.
If the news is she wins, right? She's been elected president.
Yeah, but don't forget, Steve, in this country, we have this weird system, which is weird. I'm not agreeing with the right here. It's something that's gone back decades. It's not a right or left point. But we have a system where we don't have a federal election system. We don't have a common standard of elections. Unlike in other countries, there are not independent third-party people who decide this stuff. And we have this weird situation where everyone just accepted it until 2020 that the TV networks will decide the election. And in 2020, the Saturday after, the TV networks gave it to Biden. What if Fox doesn't fall into line this time? Fox has always prided itself on having that, I've forgotten his name, the guy Arnold, whatever his name is, who calls the election desk for them.
He's gone, right?
And yeah, I don't know who's left there. And we know that Trump is now calling Rupert Murdoch directly. We know that Lachlan Murdoch is fully Team Trump. We know that the Brett Bears were scared last time. So yeah, what if Fox says no? What if Twitter and Elon Musk says no? What if there's insufficient people to say? I think you might be generously underplaying how resistant tens of millions of people will be in this country to reality.
So if you have, this is my point I'm trying to get to. So if you have the person who wins lawfully, as a matter of reality, she wins, right? Regardless of what Elon Musk says, right? Whatever he says on
the Electoral College meets in December, says it's her. Yeah.
We have procrastinated on dealing with the reckoning in this country. So we're going to have to tell, right, some number of maybe tens of millions of people, no.
Yep.
The loser can't be your Fuhrer and dictator of America because he lost the election. And no, right? And so we are, it seems to me, on the edge now of this crisis that there's no escaping from, right? There's a terrible existential crisis if he is elected president.
Yes.
But there's a profound crisis if he loses the presidency.
Agreed. Win or lose, this country's in a lot of trouble. And I'll tell you what, on nights like this, I think one man I blame a great deal for it. Very nice man. I'm sure he's a great guy personally and has great intentions. But he really effed us, is Merrick Garland. Because the reason why so many people are able to go into this election still saying bullshit about the last election is because Donald Trump was not prosecuted for the last election. We didn't get Jack Smith in court laying out in meticulous detail every day to a jury of his peers on nightly news all of the evidence that they have on Donald Trump and his incitement of insurrection and the fact that he knew that he lost and all the lies that he told and all the pressure he applied behind the scenes and all the violent threats and all the fake elector schemes.
Found Shields.
The fact that we are going into an election in 13 days' time, 4 years on from an insurrection that the Republican Senate leader, the Republican House leader all say Trump did. The fact that we are going into this election and Donald Trump was not prosecuted for anything in that. The fact that we heard the man on the phone say to the Republican Secretary
Hey,
of
look,
Georgia,
that guy's
find me
got a
11,000
helicopter.
votes. And that Georgia trial didn't happen.
He's cool.
To me, is one of the great derelictions of duty by the political class, the judiciary, and to many ways the media. And I do think that you wouldn't have persuaded tens of millions of MAGA folks with a trial, but you certainly would have reminded people of the stakes in this election, right? And that's what we don't have right now.
You could not be more correct about it. It is unspeakable, and history is going to be extremely unkind to Merrick Garland on it. It is inexplicable. The entire country, its existence, right, is dependent on this peaceful transition of power. It's a wonder of the world. It's the greatest invention in American history. George III was obsessed with what Washington would do. And he asked, would he have an empire bigger, a kingdom larger? And when he was told that Washington was going to go home to Virginia, he said that that would make him the greatest man of that or any age. He could not comprehend it. You look at the painting by Turnbull in the Capitol of Washington in an act of humility, bowing to the Congress. He's laid his military cape over the large chair that is the throne unstacking. The structure of our society is entirely, absolutely dependent on elections where the people decide who has limited power lawfully for a period of time in a system that protects the individual as supreme. And fascism is a dogma that places the individual as a cog underneath the state. It's exactly opposite of the American system. But what I've not been able to understand over all these years is what you're talking about. There is no substitute for the cornerstone. You can't take away elections and have someone impose political control on the country and allow the United States to still exist. It doesn't. The country stops.
Which is why we use the phrase existential threat to America. It's about the existence, not just a threat to democracy. It's an existential threat to democracy because America cannot continue to exist as we know it if Trump is in power, destroying the Constitution, staying on. I just say a few things about the transition of power. Number one, Richard Nixon famously loses to John F. Kennedy in the dodgiest of ways, I think it's fair to say. Nixon is the sitting vice president. We all talk about Mike Pence and the power Mike Pence has. Richard Nixon stands and says, transition of power is what makes America great. He says this in the Senate in January, whatever it was, and hands over power, right? Al Gore, we know, in 2000, beaten, I would say, illegitimately by your former boss, but still says, you know what, America, this is what America's about. And now you have this Trump and Vance saying, well, you know, Pence can overturn the election, but Kamala Harris can't. And it is a real stark warning that even Richard Nixon had more integrity and more understanding of American politics and democracy than Donald J. Trump. And, you know, the failures to prosecute Trump, like the failure to prosecute Nixon, is what led us here. And, you know, you said history will judge Merrick Garland. Our commenters, I don't know if you're reading the comments, they're judging Merrick Garland pretty harshly right now. William Burke says, do we have any evidence that Merrick Garland is even still alive? Which I think is a fair question. In fact, by the way, on Garland, Steve, I don't know if you saw, they've just sent the DOJ a very stern letter to Elon Musk saying if you're buying votes, that's against the law, you might go to prison for 5 years. That's it. No investigation, no threat of prosecution, just a very stern letter. You know what the Democrats are best at in life? Very sternly worded letters. That's what they bring, you know, you bring a, what do they say, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. They bring a sternly worded letter to a bazooka fight with fascists like Musk and Trump. And just on the transition of power, I want to say something to some of the leftists and some of the Muslims I know who are in this chat, who I've been talking with a lot in recent weeks, and there's real trauma on the left and in Muslim and Arab communities as to who to choose between Harris and Trump. And I know a lot of people on this call will say, don't be crazy, of course Trump is worse. But for a lot of people, there's a lot of hurt and pain. A lot of people in Michigan have lost 10, 20, 30 family members in Gaza. You say we can't vote for someone who's arming this, who's complicit in this. And one thing I would say is you don't have to be pro-Harris or pro-Dem to understand the threat from Trump. The way I've seen this election is, who do you want to organize under? Who do you want to be able to resist under? Who do you want to be able to protest under? Even if you hate the Democrats and hate Harris and hate Biden, the reality is that next year, if you want to campaign for labor rights or climate or the Middle East, Gaza, you're going to be able to do it under a Biden or Harris. Are you going to be able to do it under a Trump who says shoot protesters in the legs, who says if you protest for Gaza and you're a foreign student, I'm going to say you're Hamas and deport you from our country? That is not a world that I, as someone who is anti-big government, anti-oppressive government, anti our foreign policy, even if I don't like the president, even if I disagree with Kamala Harris on all of her foreign policies, I'll have a more freedom, and this is the argument I make, to speak out and say what I want to say under a normal presidency than under an abnormal presidency. And some folks, especially in the Arab community, say to me, well, if we defeat Harris now, we show our power and leverage and people will take us more seriously come 2028. And leftists say this too. And you know what I say, Steve? I say, how do you know there'll be a free and fair election in 2028? And I know some commenters listen. People say, oh, you're being hyperbolic again. You're exaggerating. Of course there'll be an election in 2028. And I say, what in Donald Trump's biography tells you that this man in 28 says, all right, guys, it's been good. Had some fun. I'm going back to Mar-a-Lago to play golf. I'm done with all this politics stuff. In what world do you see a Donald Trump leaving office just going, yeah, I'm done. See you later, people? That he doesn't try and stay on, that he doesn't try and install a family member or a corrupt acolyte. This idea that there will be free and fair elections in 2028 after 4 more years of Republican Trump rule is delusional.
I'm with you. Because again, right, nobody has heard the word no. And so as you blow through these barriers, these norms, these traditions, once you get to the other side, anything is possible here. I want to make a point, a follow up on something that you said. You know, I have a unique experience in life. I was around 2 presidential transitions late into the night as we were arranging the concession for John Kerry to President Bush. But I was the person who placed the phone call from John McCain to Barack Obama. I was the first person in America who addressed Barack Obama and the Republican Party as Mr. President-elect.
Interesting, I did not know that.
Before he handed the phone.
Good bit of trivia.
It was an extraordinary moment to play this small role at incepting this magic, which is the transfer of political power between generations, between political parties, between opponents, peacefully, directed by the sovereign will of the people. And Donald Trump is the first president who has taken a walk on it. And this goes to the DNA of the country. Let me say, you and I do have disagreements on the war in Israel, in the Middle East. It's a complicated issue, spanning from Tehran to Gaza. What I want to say, without getting into that debate on the election, there is no group in this country that is more vulnerable to a Trump administration than Muslim Americans, who have been treated badly in the country at times over the last 25 years, going back after 9/11, and all of the people in that community on this call, I don't need to explain that to you. Donald Trump has a real animus for people of color,
Yes.
for blacks, for Muslims, and he's going to
I find that shit funny.
act on that mouth. And anybody who thinks that they somehow are going to be safe from Trump
Yeah.
is very, very naive.
Yes.
Donald Trump doesn't care about abortion at all. But the religious extremists who he cares about because he wants their support, care deeply about it. And so the big government that we're talking about tonight is the government that's peeking in your bedroom window, that's journeying with you from cradle to grave, that's policing your speech, that has an opinion about your employment, that makes a call if you're politically active. Hey, Mehdi's a problem at your company. Maybe he should lose his job because he said something that made the congressman mad or the state senator mad or whatever, wherever. So this
That
is
is
a
exactly
moment
what we're looking forward to.
where the core foundational element of what makes the country a free place, where you can come to the country as a Muslim and worship, or as a Jew, or as a Christian, the rights and the freedoms,
Yes.
the foundational freedoms, Trump disdains.
Yes.
And the people that he has malice for is to be very, very, very cautious as you process your decision about how to use this vote. There is no perfect candidate.
No.
There is no candidate you will agree with on every issue, and you can passionately have one. A lot of Republicans in the country, like myself, former Republicans, who never got on board with Trump, have a lot of disagreement with Kamala Harris on a lot of issues, but none of that matters because the only thing on the ballot is the foundations of the country,
Agreed.
which he is the first president in history to openly communicate his intention to tear down.
No, I agree with you. And you know, if the candidate on the other side, and I say this to people who say we can't vote for Harris, I would say 100%. The genocide is so bad, and unlike you, I don't think it's complicated. I think it's a very straight moral issue. But I would say if the other candidate was George Bush Sr., let's say, I'd say, right, let it happen. Let her lose. Democrats need to learn a lesson. But the idea of losing to Donald Trump is not about losing to a Republican. It is losing to someone who, as you say, will be an existential threat to all of our freedoms, freedoms of speech, assembly, protest. That for me is fundamental, right? Because I cannot advocate for the Palestinians or for undocumented immigrants or for any cause that I care about if I don't have free speech, if I don't have, the rule of law, if I don't have an independent judiciary. I mean, look at Elon Musk, who just goes judge shopping. He's got his favorite judge in Texas. Look at Trump, who's got his judge in Florida, throwing out his case. That is banana republic stuff, right? This is the American judiciary now. The American judiciary now is a joke in the eyes of the rest of the world. Not just the Western world, but, Asian countries, African countries have more independent, more effective judiciaries than the United States judiciary right now, where you could literally pick your own judges. So I think that stuff for me is fundamental, right? I run a media company. I'm an immigrant. I'm a journalist. I'm a big mouth with opinions, right? For me to carry on existing as I exist, I need democracy to exist. And this is why, and I know we're at 9:05 and we've got 1,600 people watching, so we appreciate you all tuning in tonight. But this is where, this is where I really want to make a point before we finish, which is, for me, the big failure of journalism is to treat this as an abstract issue, to treat this as we're just bystanders with a view from
if I could
nowhere,
only get one
looking out on
follower.
this race between two horses, Kamala Harris and Donald
Just
Trump,
one.
who's up and who's down. Journalism cannot exist as we know it in a Trump presidency. And by the way, people think I'm being exaggerating again. Go to Florida right now. Ron DeSantis' government is bullying TV channels into not running ads for an anti-abortion vote, right? That is what's happening in Florida right now. No one talks about it because we're obsessed with free speech on campus, but not an actual Republican government in Florida cracking down on the free press. Journalism cannot exist under an authoritarian regime. And therefore, when I see journalists act like disinterested observers, we're not biased. I've said this for 9 years, I'll say it again. Journalists should have a bias towards democracy, not big D Democrats, small d democracy. We have skin in the game, right? The fourth estate cannot exist without independent judiciary, without free and fair elections, without a Congress that isn't just a rubber stamp for an autocrat in the Oval Office. And that is what I fundamentally will always criticize our media for, is this inability to understand that we ourselves cannot exist if this guy gets his way.
Yeah. Media is the fourth estate.
100%. And I think one of the things to just add on to that is, we talked earlier about fascism. We talked about Hitler. and we talked about the Republican reactions just for a second, is when you call the MAGA movement appropriately fascist, right? It's hate speech. You're trying to get Trump assassinated, and
Yeah, the real snowflakes are the
across
Trumpers.
the board, all of
There's
it,
no Republican
all of
Party
it
anymore.
is
It's
nonsense.
MAGA Party.
Adolf Hitler in 1923 tried to overthrow the nascent German democracy. And he was sent to prison. He served a short term, and when he was released, the New York Times announced that he had retired from political extremism, and he
God
had
bless the New York Times.
Right, and we had nothing more to worry about. His book, My Struggle, Mein Kampf, laid out very, very clearly what his intentions were. It took 9 years for Adolf Hitler to make that journey from the coup to the German Chancellor's office. It took him 2 years to become the Fuhrer. It took him 7 years to start World War II. And it was 3 years after World War II started that there was a meeting in a Berlin suburb where the final solution was planned. It took a long time, almost
Nobody
20
took out
years,
Snoop.
from the coup
Dumbasses.
to the gates at Auschwitz opening. The journey is the lesson. And that's what matters here. Is Donald Trump going to open up an American Auschwitz? Of course not.
Not right
However,
away.
we don't know where the story ends, just like the Germans didn't know where the story was going to end in 1937 or 1938.
How are there 6
It
of us
was going
still
to get
alive in
a
here?
lot worse. And so
This is
9
pretty
years
dumb.
in, Donald Trump at this hour is even in the race after trying to overthrow the government, promising retribution, promising vengeance, utilizing rhetoric and hate that is no different than anything that came out of the mouth of a Stryker or Goebbels about Haitians eating cats and dogs. This is
poisoning the blood of our country, straight from Mein Kampf.
Racist, fascist, poisoning the blood of the country. And so we're at a monumental moment in American life. We are in a vital hour of our nation's existence with a monumental threat
Soft foot movement.
that involves putting together a coalition that is very broad, that includes a lot of people who disagree with each other on a lot of things, but have fierce agreement that we will defend each other's freedoms and rights completely. Because freedom means freedom for everybody, not just the privileged clique that you may be part of. That's not how this country works. And so this is a monumental moment. I spent some time with some Republicans who disdain Trump, do not like Kamala Harris. They're not going to vote for Trump. I can't get them to vote for Kamala Harris. That's fine. Good enough. Stay home. Don't vote. Right? So the Republicans in your life, if you're watching this, right? If you can't make a vote for Harris and you can't make a vote for Trump, don't vote. Don't vote. Do not vote for Donald Trump.
I'll tell you what, Steve, just to put a pin in all this, and by the way, there's about nearly 1,700 of you watching, so we thank you all. Louisa says, thank you, Steve and Mehdi, for this conversation. We thank you for tuning in and listening to us scare the bejesus out of all of you, but it has to be done because it's true. And I know some of you are saying in the chat you're going to go off and have a very stiff drink after this. The Muslims on this chat are going to go off and pray for all of us. Let me end by saying this, 2 things. I often think we're in some crazy movie. I don't know if you saw The Daily Show this week. Jon Stewart talked about, is this like the dream from Dallas? How can this stuff be real, what we're going through? Maybe it's all a nightmare that we wake up from. But I'll tell you what, if it is a TV show, if somebody's written this out, like, that Jim Carrey movie, if we're all in the middle of a TV show, 20 years ago for a start, I'll say 2 things. One is, if the writers of that show came to me 20 years ago and said, Mehdi, 20 years ago when I was marching against the Iraq war, and said, in 20 years, you and a guy who works for George Bush
I'll be
will
back.
be in 100% agreement on the need to stop the guy from Home Alone 2 from a second term in office? I'd have said, shut the fuck up. You're insane. That's number one. And number two, the writers of this show are so insane that they sat in the writers' room and they said, we're going to have this autocrat run for office. We're going to have him quote Hitler. We're going to have the left and liberals say, this guy's like Hitler. But the best part of all is his running mate is going to be the guy who warned the country that he could be America's Hitler. That, for me, is the greatest of all ironies. I don't need John Kelly or Mark Milley to go back to the beginning of this conversation to tell me how dangerous Donald Trump is. Donald Trump's running mate warned us all that he could be America's Hitler. So we need to, I think, resist America's Hitler come November the 5th. That is my priority. I'll be doing that at Zeteo. Steve will be doing that at The Warning. Check out both of our newsletters and output on Substack. Thank you to Substack for hosting this election dialogue via this Substack Live. Please do become subscribers to The Warning and to Zeteo so that we can challenge the New York Times and the CNNs and the Comcasts of this world when they normalize fascism and when they, in Tim Snyder's words, obey in advance. Do support independent journalism going forward. Make sure you do vote and get your friends and family to vote. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Steve. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Mehdi. Good night, everybody. Please subscribe to Zeteo and to The Warning. Help support this message, this cause, and vote.
Good night.
Good night.
Did you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications. For exclusive content and to support our independent, unfiltered journalism, head over to Zeteo.com. Your support matters. I have interviewed, debated, sparred with controversial, opinionated, offensive people from across the world, sitting presidents and prime ministers, former directors of the CIA and Mossad, Trump officials, Biden officials, a Netanyahu spokesman, a Hamas spokesman, an IRA leader, Vivek Ramaswamy. But never in my 25 years as a journalist and 15 years of doing live TV have I been so stunned by what was said to me that I had to walk off set in the middle of a live show, as I did on Monday night on CNN in New York when this happened. If you don't want to be called Nazis, stop doing it.
You've been called an anti-Semite more than anyone else's table.
Yeah.
And people would sit there and, no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians, so I'm used to it.
Yeah, well, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that...
Did you just say I should die?
You should not.
No, I
Did you just say I should be
No,
killed?
I did not say that. No, I did not say that.
Hold on.
Did your guest just say I should be killed on live TV? Yes, that was far-right pundit Ryan Gadusky reacting to me saying I support Palestinians by basically inciting violence against me, suggesting I might be blown up in the way that Hezbollah members and Lebanese civilians were blown up via their beepers by Israel in what the former CIA chief Leon Panetta called a clear terrorist attack. That's what Gadusky casually suggested might happen to me. J.D. Vance associate Ryan Gadusky, Trump supporter Ryan Gadusky. Because in his head, when he hears Palestinian, he hears Hamas. When he sees a Muslim in front of him, he sees Hamas. Now, he and his right-wing friends are saying, I called all Republicans Nazis, which, of course, I didn't. Although apparently white supremacist Richard Spencer claims Gadusky used to write for him. What I did say was that if you don't want to be called a Nazi, don't say Nazi-like things, as was said at the Trump rally in New York on Sunday. Jews are cheap, black people like watermelons, Muslims are terrorists. And this guy's response to that was to imply I'm a terrorist who might be killed by Israel. A line that wasn't a joke, and that he almost certainly came pre-prepared with, thinking he could get away with it on live national television. That's how bold these MAGA Republicans have become with their racism. That's the permission structure Trump and Vance have created, with the help of some in our media who've just happily platformed it. But as shocked and stunned as I was, there was no way I was going to let him say that to me unchallenged. And I'm glad to see CNN has since banned him from their airwaves, and I appreciate host Abby Phillip apologizing to the viewers and to me after I walked off set. I do want to do a shout out here, by the way, to my fellow panelist Ashley Allison, a former Biden-Harris 2020 campaign staffer
who was with me on that panel.
What you just said
Kamala
right
Harris
here,
is a pimp.
apologize, but I will tell you, I don't accept that apology, and you didn't even say
That's
it to
fine.
me.
I didn't say it
that
to
was
you.
disgusting. But I can be offended when you don't even say it to me. I'm not Puerto Rican, but I was offended by what he said yesterday.
Where would we be as a country without black women holding the line against racism and bigotry and showing us what solidarity looks like? If Harris wins next week, it'll be partly because of her fellow black women holding that line. And if she loses, and to be clear, because of her refusal to budge even an inch on Gaza, Harris morally deserves to lose. We will get a Trump presidency, a white supremacist presidency, an anti-black, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic presidency, in which people like the bigot I had to deal with on CNN will be emboldened like never before. They won't just be running their mouths on TV panels against public figures like me. They'll be at your kid's school gate. They'll be at your grocery store. They'll be in your subway car, proudly and shamelessly saying this stuff to you too. They'll also be in charge of US foreign policy, egging on Israel to do more beeper attacks, even more acts of terror, egging on Trump and Vance to be more racist, more violent, both at home and abroad. A white liberal friend of mine, while sending me a very supportive text yesterday, asked me in good faith, is it emotionally taxing to face this bigotry, or is it par for the course at this point? To which my answer is, sadly, we Muslims don't have thicker skins than everyone else, nor should we have to have thicker skins than everyone else. We're human beings. So of course it's emotionally taxing. That's the whole point. That's why they do it. Racism is about not just dehumanizing you, but demoralizing you and depressing you. It's about beating you down and keeping you on the defensive, forcing you to fight an uphill battle, and apparently even threatening you with a terrorist attack. As the one and only Toni Morrison so wisely, so eloquently, so rightly said, the function, the very serious function of racism is distraction. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining over and over again your reason for being. Well, to be clear, less than a week out from the most consequential election of our lifetimes, with genocide on the ballot, yes, but also fascism plus genocide on the ballot, I'm in no mood to explain myself to the racists and bullies. But I will continue to speak out. I will continue to do the work. And so should you. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being a subscriber to Zeteo. Did you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications. For exclusive content and to support our independent, unfiltered journalism, head over to Zeteo.com. Your support matters.
Trigger warning. We're going to watch videos about Gaza.
We've got Congressman Daniel Goldman. Thanks so much for taking the time.
I just think we need to kill them, every one of them, and that's it. And if not that, because the country will not let that happen, the government. Just the least we can do is just kick them out of our land, because this is our home, this is our land, and we deserve it.
Yeah, I think colonialism gets a bad rap. Like, genocide is bad, but colonizing places that are genocidal and they have bad ideology, it's good to come in and correct their views.
Sound like you're advocating for ethnic cleansing?
I don't think so, because Palestinian isn't an ethnicity, it's an ideology, and it's an ideology that says that they want Jews dead, and so we want them as far away from Jews as possible.
As the Israeli military begins its third attempt at ethnic cleansing northern Gaza, Israeli civilians are preparing for their shot at capturing real estate. You would assume that because everything we're about to look at is in violation of international law, that they would be conducting these meetings in secret. They are not meeting in secret, though. In fact, they are openly advertising it, broadcasting it in the media, and doing so with direct support from the Israeli government. Last week, Daniela Weiss hosted this event in Masaf Habazak, just miles from northern Gaza.
Do you feel like this is your political moment?
It's not a moment. It's the beginning of an era.
Weiss is one of the heads of the Nakala Settlement Movement, a West Bank settlement group, comprised of and endorsed by some of the most powerful people in Israel. And this group has turned its colonizing gaze to the settlement of northern Gaza. From a young age, the children of these settler movements are brought up to believe that Gaza is their rightful home, and that there's only one way to reclaim this home, which is by cleansing it of the Palestinian people already living there.
When you have a cut in your body, and that cut, it has an infection. You have to take out the infection. When you take out the infection, then it'll be clean again.
There's a concerted effort in Israeli media to try to portray these settlers as some kind of extremists, ones that adhere to a fringe ideology. However, among Israelis, the idea of settling the Gaza Strip is becoming increasingly popular.
There is some reliable polling that suggests that between 25 and 40% of the population here supports some form of settlement inside Gaza. The awful trauma of October the 7th attacks have pushed those figures towards the upper end.
I love the implication of what he said there, which is that ethnic cleansing is some kind of trauma response, as if their genocidal ideology would be fixed if they just went to therapy. Unsurprisingly, this push to settle Gaza also has a lot of support from within the Israeli government. Itamar Ben-Gvir, Israel's Minister of National Security, is the strongest ally of this new settler movement. To give you an idea of the type of guy Ben-Gvir is, as recently as 2020, he had a portrait of an Israeli mass shooter hanging in his home, Baruch Goldstein, perpetrator of the Ibrahimi Mosque massacre in 1994 in Hebron, where he walked into a mosque and shot and killed 29 Muslims worshipping there. This guy is who is hanging on the Minister of National Security's wall. Also, apparently 10% of Israeli Jews think that Baruch Goldstein is a national hero. There's a fun fact for you, I guess. So what would these future settlements look like? And for that, we can look to the West Bank, where there already exists hundreds of illegal settlements, where they are bulldozing Palestinian homes to replace them with Israeli ones every year. In the past year alone, almost 1,700 Palestinian homes were destroyed to make way for more Israeli settlements. The destruction of these homes, while sometimes done under the auspices of building code violations, is generally done by armed Israeli settlers themselves, often with direct protection provided by the IDF. Armed settlers with the active participation of army units repeatedly cut off road access and raid Palestinian communities, detain, assault, and torture residents, and chase them out of their homes and off their lands at gunpoint, or coerce them to leave with death threats while blocking them from taking their belongings. These attacks aren't new and have been happening long before October 7th. According to Human Rights Watch, settler attacks on Palestinians increased in 2023 to their highest level since the UN began recording this data in 2006. And again, that was before October 7th.
This video shows Israeli settlers attacking Palestinian olive pickers and destroying their property, beating and chasing them from their fields. Ilham shows me where settlers have put straw in her family's trees. They use it to set light to them. Some are hundreds of years old. She says settler attacks have increased since the start of the war.
The level of violence has increased. They've stopped even talking to us now. They just come and beat us. Some open fire, killing people. There is no way they will ever entertain even the thought of a mutual understanding between us.
One of the latest victims of this conflict, not killed in Gaza, but a hillside village in the West Bank. Grief and anger after a 23-year-old Palestinian was shot dead by Jewish settler extremists as they attacked the community of Jit last night.
To make this clear, if you are an Israeli, you can gather your friends, go to the West Bank, and commit whatever atrocities you'd like. Seize homes, shoot at families, burn fields, and you will more than likely have full protection from any repercussions, and in addition, full military support. Settler attacks are rarely even acknowledged, let alone punished. This sort of violence and expansion is viewed as more of a feature than a bug of the Israeli state. The more Palestinians they drive off the land, the more settlements can be built, thus increasing the chances that Israel can expand its borders. It has taken decades of international pressure to even begin to apply generally meaningless sanctions to settlers, like freezing their American bank accounts and barring them from business dealings in the United States. The government itself is taking steps to accelerate this process. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich recently demanded Israeli sovereignty over the entire region at an Israeli conference for American evangelicals. Israel must free itself from wrong concepts and make an unequivocal Israeli statement to the Arabs and the entire world that a Palestinian state will not be established. Through the establishment of new cities and settlements deep in the West Bank and bringing hundreds of thousands of additional settlers to live in them. This sovereignty would allow Israeli control over Gaza for an indefinite and inevitably endless period of time. Just like in the West Bank, settler terror mobs would descend on the Strip in an attempt to strip the last shreds of dignity from the Palestinians living there and clear space in the rubble for more, newer, illegitimate Israeli real estate. This open violation of international law is only possible because each time the Israeli government moves to further legitimize these settlements, the United States, its most powerful ally, makes empty appeals to its concerns while taking no tangible or material steps to actually stop them. None of this would be possible if not for direct support from the United States, with groups like Keep Israel Safe, who fundraise for these settlements and send it to Israel directly.
Nahalal gets support from a number of groups in the U.S., including AFSI,
Americans for a Safe Israel, which co-sponsored a recent webinar on the return to Gush Katif.
There's few things I can think of that are less safe than setting up a neighborhood illegally in an active genocide zone. In a way, this could also be understood as settlers acting as human shields for the IDF. The closer and sooner these settlers can move towards any of the fighting, the more of an excuse they have in their minds to ethnically cleanse Palestinians further and further south. This movement is supported by wealthy Americans, but according to Vice, their anonymity must be protected.
There is a very strong support from very prominent, from very, I would say, wealthy people, wealthy Jews
In the US.
In the US.
Can you name any names?
No, I cannot. No.
I would be willing to guess that this protection is less about hiding their support for the Zionist project and more that they are violating international law by funneling money directly into groups that build these illegal settlements. And again, to get an idea of the types of people we're dealing with here, the funds raised by these groups don't just go to the settler movements, they also go to the IDF and the sniper units specifically. This is probably the most direct way you can send your money there to kill kids, given the IDF snipers' long and storied history of clear, deliberate targeting of civilians. This past year, you saw dozens of doctors all report multiple instances of treating children that had been shot directly in their hearts and skulls. That's the snipers, and that's what these people are funding. Unfortunately, it's looking like these settlers might have their way, as Israel's general's plan for northern Gaza is currently in full effect, despite the US's impotent gestures to withhold military aid if they did it. The safety of the people living in Gaza has reached an all-time low, and it's only going to get worse. The general's plan also ramps up Israel's intentional starvation efforts to an extreme degree. Hundreds of trucks have already been turned away daily by the Israeli blockade, and then days ago you saw that UNRWA, the largest organization providing that aid, was banned from operating within Israel by the Israeli government. This move has been described by human rights groups as a death sentence for the people still alive in Gaza. 83% of required food aid does not make it into Gaza, which is up from 34% in 2023. This reduction means people in Gaza have gone from having an average of 2 meals a day to just 1 meal every other day. An estimated 50,000 children aged between 6 and 59 months urgently require treatment for malnutrition by the end of the year. It is becoming increasingly likely that Israel will remain unimpeded in its mission to ethnically cleanse the north of the Gaza Strip, and in doing so, clear the way for settler access to Lebensraum and the expansion of its illegal occupation. In 1948, the State of Israel was established after over 700,000 Palestinians were ethnically cleansed from their land and homes, in what's known as the Nakba. These settlers have, for the past year, consistently and publicly called for a new Nakba, and unless the world does something to stop it, they will get what they want.
You know, because who fucking cares about human beings, right? They're not human beings if they're Muslims. Obviously. I'm disgusted by a lot of the people that are in this world. They have no love for humanity. They only have love for themselves. All that matters to them. How can I get over on me, on others?
At a time when Israel is killing Palestinians at unprecedented rates, at a time when Israel is bombing hospitals, ambulances, refugee camps, deliberately targeting journalists and their entire families, at a time when Israel has flattened most of Gaza, rendering it uninhabitable, there's a select group of individuals, we call them liberals, that aren't quite focused on that. They're more focused on making sure people don't call this genocide.
I think Israel's goal is to eliminate Hamas. I think they have the moral authority to do so. Unfortunately, there is a high cost right now of civilian casualties. I'm not sure there's any way to avoid that at the moment. I'm not sure there's any way to avoid that at the moment. I'm not sure there's any way to avoid that at the moment. I'm not sure there's any way to avoid that at the moment. I'm not sure there's any way to avoid that at the moment. No other fighting force in the world does what Israel does when it comes to warning people about imminent attacks.
This guy what's his name? Destiny, I think. Yeah, he's like some type of influencer, internet guy. He is one of the loudest of such liberals that really just don't like hearing the G word when we're talking about what Israel is doing right now. Destiny went on a Twitter storm the other day. We're going to read these tweets. We're going to see how he justifies this assertion. And yeah, that's today's video, and hope you enjoy. If Israel wanted to genocide
the first video was
then they
his
would
newest
only
video on
exist in the history books. Okay.
This is just another video.
Yeah, Yeah, so we see what's going on there. So because Israel hasn't wiped all Palestinians off the face of the earth, then they have yet to commit a genocide. That's what's being expressed here, right? If you read the UN's definition of genocide, any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group as such. Killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. There's no requirement or stipulation for total annihilation. If that were the case, a lot of genocides, most genocides would not meet the definition, a notable one being the Holocaust. Yeah. The logic in this tweet implies that because some Jews survived the Holocaust, the Nazis must not have wanted it that bad, because if they had, they would have succeeded. Anybody else sense that? There's Hitler particles emanating from this tweet? Journalist Mehdi Hassan responded to that last tweet from Destiny, writing, "Per this argument, China isn't guilty of genocide in Xinjiang because the Uyghurs still exist. Same with Russia and Ukraine." Destiny quote tweeted this, writing, "China is guilty of genocide because they are intentionally trying to eliminate a group of people, and it shows. There is no evidence of Israel doing this to Palestinians today. No evidence. There's nothing." It's like, oh shoot, okay. It feels weird. Everyone's like really up in arms about what's going on. Are they just making it up? Oh, hold on, hold the fort. I just found something on my computer. It's an 84-page document submitted to the International Court of Justice that outlines in detail with citations the plethora of evidence of Israel's genocidal actions and intent. Chat, is this real? Is this a thing? Just to preface, this document and application is pretty unprecedented. The ICJ is the UN's highest court. It's the world court, basically. And after hearing South Africa's case against Israel, they ended up ruling that Israel is plausibly committing genocide. They fell short of calling for a ceasefire, but they did order, with near unanimous approval, that Israel must halt any actions in Gaza that could constitute genocide, which, according to the ICJ, they are currently plausibly undertaking. There is no evidence that Israel has changed anything about their rhetoric or military strategy in the months since this ruling, so, by the court's logic, the final verdict should be obvious, but unfortunately, we likely won't see that conclusion for at least another few years, because we live in hell. Okay, enough yapping. We're starting on page 30, section C. Genocidal acts committed against the Palestinian people. This section provides an overview of the acts in which Israel is engaged that are genocidal in character, having regard to their nature, scope, and context. These acts are ongoing in a conflict context, where Israel is deliberately imposing telecommunications blackouts on Gaza, restricting access by fact-finding bottoms and international media. Section 1 outlines the actions defined as killing Palestinians in Gaza. It goes over the death toll, which is actually out of date. Currently, it's sitting at 28,000, not 21,000. The percentage of women and children killed, which is 70. The 15,000 people that are reported missing, probably dead under the rubble. Palestinians have been killed in their homes, in shelters, in hospitals, in schools, churches, mosques, literally just trying to find food and water for their families. Killed while evacuating, killed in the zones by which they're supposed to be evacuated to. By evacuate, that means displaced, it means kicked out, homes destroyed, can't come back. Multiple instances of Israeli soldiers performing summary execution. One account was of at least 11 members of the Anan family and their relatives, boys and men, said to have been separated out by Israeli shoulders and shot in front of their family, before the women and children were then attacked. Unarmed people, including Israeli hostages, being shot dead on sight despite posing no threat, even while waving white flags.
When News at 10 first broadcast pictures of a Palestinian man in a group carrying a white flag in Gaza who was shot dead, the Israeli military told us it was not aware of the incident. It then said we had edited the pictures.
They knocked down the front wall and entered the house. We were sitting down having lunch at the time. Then my brother Mohammed was shot. He was at the front, waving a white flag.
For Palestinian children in particular, death is everywhere and nowhere is safe. A total of over 7,729 Palestinian children have been killed in Gaza to date. The scale of Palestinian child killings in Gaza is such that United Nations chiefs have described it as a graveyard for children. Indeed, the unprecedented rate of Palestinian child casualties has prompted UNICEF's spokesperson to call Israel's attacks on Gaza a war on children. Doctors, journalists, teachers, academics, and other professionals are also being killed at wholly unprecedented rates. To date, Israel has killed over 311 doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers, including doctors and ambulance drivers killed on duty, 103 journalists, which is now closer to 120, amounting to over one per day, and over 73% of the total number of journalists and media workers killed globally in 2023, 40 civil defense workers responsible for helping to dig victims out of rubble killed while on duty, and over 209 teachers and educational staff. 144 United Nations employees have also been killed, the highest number of aid workers killed in UN history. addition to being killed by Israeli weaponry, Palestinians in Gaza are also at immediate risk of death by starvation, dehydration, and disease as a result of the ongoing siege by Israel, the insufficient aid being allowed through to the Palestinian population, and the extreme difficulties in distributing such limited aid that is permitted to enter the territory due to the decimation of Gaza's infrastructure in Israel's military attacks. Israelis sitting in front of the aid trucks to block them from entering Gaza is also not helping, surprise, surprise, celebrating too, laughing what happens. Absolutely fucking depraved.
Dozens of protesters have demonstrated outside a major Israeli seaport opposing the delivery of humanitarian aid.
Hey, we're going to take a break from this very upsetting material real quick to talk about today's quite relevant sponsor, Ground News. Seeing what's happening in Gaza play out on the news and on our social media feeds can be confusing. It's hard to know what information to trust when it's being thrown at us so often, usually without enough context. So I can't think of a more perfect sponsor for today's video than Ground News. Ground News app and website gathers related news articles on any topic from around the world in one place and shows me the source's political leaning, reliability, and ownership, so I can assess how different news outlets are framing this conflict. For example, when Israel airstruck Rafah, the supposed refugee camp in the south of Gaza, killing at least 67 Palestinians, I used Ground News to see how that story was covered. 472 news outlets reported on this, with a fairly equal amount of coverage coming from the left, center, and right-leaning sources, according to bias ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations. And since there are so many misleading narratives out there, I filtered the articles by highest factuality, so I only see news from the most reliable outlets.
We're down to 10,
articles on the left seem to focus on how this attack is affecting Palestinian civilians, the ones being displaced into the only supposed place of refuge, only to be, bombed, airstruck. Center-rated sources gave the more detached details of just how these bombs were dropped on the refugee camp, and articles on the right tended to lead with this conflict's effect on Israelis and the Israeli hostages. Most people never read beyond article headlines, so the ability to compare the framing from hundreds of news outlets all at once with tools that help me surface the best information is a game changer. So go to ground.news/Noah to try Ground News for yourself. Plans start at $1 per month, but you can get 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan by using my link. Ground News is supported by their subscribers and doing important work that no other news outlets are doing, so I encourage you to check them out. Alright, now let's get back to the video. Section number 2, which is about bodily and mental harm to Palestinians in Gaza. Mind you, this is 2 of 8, and yeah, we're gonna go through them all because I feel like I haven't seen that done in any major Western media outlets or content. I'm sure it has been, but just in case, if you haven't seen it, we're doing it. 55,000 Palestinians have been wounded in Israel's military attacks since October 7th. The majority of them were children. Burns and amputations are typical injuries. There's an estimated 1,000 children that have lost one or both legs. Reports of Israeli forces using white phosphorus in densely populated areas. Even small amounts of white phosphorus can cause deep and severe burns, penetrating through the bone and capable of reigniting after initial treatment. There are no functioning hospitals in the north of Gaza, soon to be none in the south as well. Of the 12 that existed, only 7 are
I guess that
operational,
car's staying
such that
there.
injured persons are reduced to waiting to die, unable to seek surgery or medical treatment beyond first aid, dying slow, agonizing deaths from their injuries or from resultant infections. The extreme levels of bombardment and lack of any safe areas are also causing severe mental trauma in the Palestinian population in Gaza. Even before the latest onslaught, Palestinians in Gaza suffered severe trauma from prior attacks. 80% of Palestinian children experienced higher levels of emotional distress, demonstrating bedwetting and reactive mutism, and engaging in self-harm and suicidal thoughts. 11 weeks of relentless bombardment, displacement, and loss will necessarily have led to a further increase in those figures, particularly for the estimated tens of thousands of Palestinian children who've lost at least one parent and those who are the sole surviving members of their families.
On the second floor, there's a 5-year-old boy who was hit by a grenade. A fragment passed through his eye and lodged in his brain. But that's just part of Mumin's story. His brother and sister watched it all.
It was lunchtime. We were sitting down.
11-year-old Ahmed Hattab was in the kitchen when Israeli soldiers broke into the family home.
They raided our house and they shot our mum and dad. Then they started shooting at us.
His sister, Buthena, is 9.
We went to another room, hiding from the soldiers. They started banging on the door, and then they blew it up.
Point 53 gives examples of actions taken to intentionally cause psychological distress, specifically with regards to education and how the system is being completely disrupted by the bombing. It's even worse in reality than it looks. The amount of suffering is just something incomparable. It's really unbearable. I'm speechless when I try and think of the future of these children, generations of children who will be traumatized. The very children in our mental health programs are telling us that they would rather die than continue living in Gaza now. Large numbers of Palestinian civilians, including children, have reportedly been arrested, blindfolded, forced to undress and remain outside in the cold weather before being forced onto trucks and taken to unknown locations. Medics and first responders in particular have been repeatedly detained by Israeli forces, with many being detained incommunicado at unknown locations. Videos published by Israeli media on Christmas Day appear to show hundreds of Palestinians rounded up inside Al Yarmouk football stadium in Gaza City, including children, older people, and persons with disabilities being forced to strip to their underwear in degrading conditions. Many Palestinian detainees who have been released report having been subjected to torture and ill treatment, including the deprivation of food, water, shelter, and access to toilets. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports video footage showing bruises and burns on the bodies of detainees. Images of mutilated and burned corpses alongside videos of armed attacks by Israeli soldiers filed as exclusive content from the Gaza Strip are reportedly circulated in Israel via a social media Telegram channel called 72 Versions Uncensored.
This is a picture of Palestinians praying for those who have been killed by Israel. In the accompanying post, the dead are compared to, quote, a large shipment of fresh-baked goods straight from the shawarma. A comment reads, quote, I asked for a medium rare, make a new one. And then there's this. A dead body is being pulled by a vehicle across the sand. Kudos to our warriors who, despite the war, keep the beaches clean from unnecessary trash.
It is estimated that over 1.9 million Palestinians out of Gaza's population of 2.3 million people, approximately 85% of the population, have been forced from their homes. There's nowhere safe for them to flee. Those who cannot leave or refuse to be displaced have been killed or at extreme risk of being killed in their homes. Israel is repeatedly issuing evacuation orders demanding that Palestinian civilians in certain areas of Gaza leave their homes for other areas. The first such order, issued on the 13th of October in 2023, demanded that 1.1 million Palestinians living or otherwise present in the north of Gaza, including Gaza City, move to the south of Gaza within a 24-hour window. The International Committee of the Red Cross warned that the evacuation directive, impacting approximately 36% of Gaza's territory, combined with the complete siege of Gaza, was not compatible with international humanitarian law. The World Health Organization warned that it could be tantamount to a death sentence for hospital patients. The evacuation was, however, maintained and has been reissued on a number of occasions, including on the 28th of October 2023, ahead of the Israeli announcement of ground operations in northern Gaza, and again thereafter, shelling and bombardment along the evacuation routes and at the destinations of the evacuation routes, leaving quote-unquote evacuation maps that have no designated areas to which they'd need to evacuate.
We identified 208 of these craters in satellite imagery and drone footage, indicating 2,000-pound bombs posed a pervasive threat to civilians seeking safety across South Gaza.
Not to mention near total internet blackouts at the time, preventing most Gazans to even see these maps. Point number 4 is deprivation of access to adequate food and water to Palestinians in Gaza. It is now literally impossible to effectively deliver this humanitarian aid. The late December UN Security Council measures were bogus. They were not going to work. They were never going to work. The watered-down resolution fails to properly address the 4 elements identified by the United Nations Secretary General as necessary following effective aid capable of assisting Palestinians in Gaza. Shelves are empty, wallets are empty, stomachs are empty. There's just one bakery operating in the whole of Gaza. You may or maybe probably not have seen that statistic that 90% of the world's populations in extreme hunger and famine are located in Gaza right now. People in northern Gaza are eating grass to survive. They are drinking polluted water. The lack of water is severely impacting lactating women in particular, who, even if undertaking only a moderate amount of exercise, require a supply of 7.5 liters of water a day for drinking, sanitation, and hygiene to keep themselves and their babies healthy. Young mothers are unable to breastfeed for lack of proper nutrition as arising from the food scarcity. They've been forced to use contaminated water to prepare formula where it is even available, risking disease in vulnerable babies. In parallel, the chronic unviability of formula is also risking the lives of newborn babies who are already reportedly dying from avoidable causes due to the absence of medical care, food, water, and adequate sanitation. The impacts of malnourishment on older children may also be particularly grave and long-lasting, preventing them from reaching their full potential in terms of physical growth, cognitive capacity, school performance, and productivity later in life. Experts are now predicting that more Palestinians in Gaza may die from starvation and disease than airstrikes, and yet Israel is intensifying its bombing campaign, precluding the effective delivery of humanitarian assistance to Palestinians. It is clear that Israel is, through its actions and policies in Gaza, deliberately inflicting on Palestinians conditions of life calculated to bring about their destruction. Point 5 concerns the deprivation of access to adequate shelter, clothes, hygiene and sanitation to Palestinians in Gaza. More descriptions and examples here of just a lack of basic necessities. Clothes, bedding, blankets, critical non-food items. Point 6 is the deprivation of adequate medical assistance to Palestinians in Gaza. Almost above all else, Israel's military assault on Gaza has been an attack on Gaza's medical healthcare system, indispensable to the life and survival of the Palestinians in Gaza. Israel has declared an unrelenting war on the health system in Gaza, as observed by the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the right of everyone to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. In a statement issued on the 7th of December in 2023, the United Nations expert noted that the healthcare infrastructure in the Gaza Strip has been completely obliterated and that we bear witness to a shameful war on healthcare workers. She warned that we are in the darkest time for right to health in our lifetimes and that we have descended into depths from which we must quickly emerge. Since early December 2023, Israeli attacks on Palestinian hospitals have only increased. The Israeli army has continued to attack and besiege hospitals and healthcare centers to deprive them of electricity and fuel, crucial to maintain effective functioning and equipment, to obstruct them from receiving medical supplies, food and water, to force their evacuations and closure, and effectively to destroy them. The north of Gaza, without any functioning hospital for a week, has only 4 severely challenged, partially functioning hospitals available now. There have now been more than 238 attacks on healthcare in Gaza, in which over 61 hospitals and other healthcare facilities have been damaged or destroyed. Do you remember when everyone was arguing about who launched the rocket that killed 300 people at Al Ali Hospital? So much time and media coverage dedicated to something that is literally 1/50th of the damage and destruction wrought by Israel against Gaza's healthcare system. It was all a distraction meant to get the conversation shifted over from literally everything is being destroyed and everyone is being killed to we need the New York Times to develop a 3D diagram and diagnose exactly what happened here and argue about this for 3 weeks while every single day a hospital is being destroyed, bombed or attacked or starved of resources. At least 570 Palestinians have been killed at hospitals and healthcare centers in Gaza, and further 746 have been injured. This includes patients and internally displaced Palestinians who vainly sought sanctuary on or near hospital grounds, killed by Israeli strikes or snipers. Palestinian mothers have been killed in maternity hospitals and Palestinian children in children's hospitals. Even those tending to and counting the dead, like Saeed al-Shorbaji, director of Nasser's hospital mortuary, have themselves been killed. Some have even been victims of Israeli attacks multiple times over, like 12-year-old Dina Abu Massan, interviewed by UNICEF after losing her parents, 2 siblings, and her leg in an Israeli strike on her home. She was then killed herself when the Israeli army shelled the hospital where she was being treated. That shit, man. That shit. It is literally impossible to keep up and cover adequately the amount of destruction and murder that Israel is doing. It's impossible. And I don't know, man. I just don't know. Fucking Jesus Christ. Those wounded by Israel in Gaza are being deprived of life-saving medical care. Gaza's healthcare system, already crippled by years of blockade and prior attacks by Israel, is unable to cope with the sheer scale of the injuries, now at 55,243 injured, including at least 8,663 children. There are reports of severely injured patients walking for miles trying to find help. UNICEF highlighted the case of a boy from the north whose leg had been blown off in the violence, who had spent 3 or 4 days trying to reach the south, delayed by checkpoints. The smell of decomposition was clear, and that boy had shrapnel all over. Potentially he was blind and had burns to 50% of his body. I was forced to do dressing changes on massive wounds, excruciatingly painful wounds. There was a girl with just her whole body covered in shrapnel. She was 9. I ended up having to change and clean these wounds with no anesthetic and no analgesic. I managed to find some intravenous paracetamol to give her. Her dad was crying, I was crying, and the poor child was screaming. Similarly to famine, the possibility of disease killing more Palestinians than the bombardments is approaching. The final point in this section of the document concerns the destruction of Palestinian life in Gaza. In November, 21 members of United Nations working groups warning of a genocide in the making in Gaza observed that the level of destruction that had been by then taken place of housing units as well as hospitals, schools, mosques, bakeries, water pipes, sewage, and electricity networks threatens to make the continuation of Palestinian life in Gaza impossible. As they note, Israel has in its bombing campaign against Gaza used powerful weaponry with inherently indiscriminate impacts, resulting in a colossal death toll and the destruction of life-sustaining infrastructure. Israel has destroyed not only individual homes, houses, and whole apartment blocks, it has destroyed entire streets and entire neighborhoods. Shujaiya, a suburb of Gaza City, once home to approximately 110,000 Palestinians, appears to be now a vast wasteland, entirely flattened as far as the eye can see. Its shops, schools, vibrant marketplace, family homes, doctor clinics, historic streets, and in Uthman Mosque, and everything that once sustained Palestinian life there has been damaged or destroyed, along with with so many of its people. Other areas in Gaza appear to have experienced a similar level of destruction, including Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, Gaza Old City, Al-Ramal, and Nuseirat refugee camp in the south. Israel's targeted the Palace of Justice, the main Palestinian court building in Gaza, housing the Palestinian Supreme Court, as well as an archive of court records and other historical files. Israel has also significantly damaged the Palestinian Legislative Council complex. It has targeted Gaza City's central archive building, containing thousands of historical documents and national records dating back over 100 years, forming an essential archive of Palestinian history, as well as more modern records of Gaza City's urban development. Israel has left Gaza City's main public library in ruins. It has also damaged or destroyed countless bookshops, publishing houses, libraries, and hundreds of educational facilities. Israel has targeted every one of Gaza's 4 universities, including the Islamic University of Gaza, the oldest higher education institution in the territory, which has trained generations of doctors, engineers, amongst others, destroying campuses for the education of future generations of Palestinians in Gaza. Alongside many others, Israel has killed leading Palestinian academics, including Professor Soufiane Tahiya, the president of the Islamic University, an award-winning physicist and UNESCO chair of astronomy, astrophysics, and space sciences in Palestine, who died alongside his family in an airstrike. Dr. Ahmed Hamdi Abu Absa, dean of the software engineering department in the University of Palestine, reportedly shot dead by Israeli soldiers as he walked away, having been released from 3 days of enforced disappearance. Professor Mohammed Aid Shabir, professor of immunology and virology and former president of the Islamic University of Gaza. The airstrike on his home killed him, his wife, their daughter-in-law, and their eldest son. Those who survived the bombing and tried to walk to Al-Shifa Hospital nearby were shot dead by Israeli forces besieging the hospital. Professor Rifat Al-Arir, poet and professor of comparative literature and creative writing at the Islamic University of Gaza, Professor Al-Arir was a co-founder of We Are Not Numbers, a Palestinian youth project seeking to tell the stories behind otherwise impersonal accounts of Palestinians and Palestinian deaths in the news.
For more than 16 years, Al-Arir worked as a professor of English literature at the Islamic University of Gaza, where he taught Shakespeare and other subjects. Rifat Al-Arir was a father of 6 and a mentor to many young Palestinian writers and journalists. He authored dozens of stories and poems about life under Israeli occupation in Gaza.
Israel has damaged and destroyed numerous centers of Palestinian learning and culture, including the Al-Zafar Damari Mosque and Center for Manuscripts and Ancient Documents, the Orthodox Cultural Center, the Al-Qarara Cultural Museum, the Gaza Center for Culture and Arts, the Arab Social Cultural Center, the Hakawi Society for Culture and Arts, and the Rafah Museum, Gaza's newly opened museum of Palestinian heritage, housing hundreds of cultural and archaeological artifacts. Israel's attacks have destroyed Gaza's ancient history. 8 sites have been damaged or destroyed, including the ancient port of Gaza, known as Anthedon Harbor, or Al-Balakia, the archaeological site of a 2,000-year-old Roman cemetery listed on both the Islamic Heritage List and tentative UNESCO World Heritage List. Israel has also destroyed Gaza City's Old City, including its 146-year-old historic houses, mosques, churches, markets, and schools. It has also destroyed more recent history of more hopeful times, including the Rashad Al-Shawa Cultural Center, site of the historic meeting between United States President Bill Clinton and Palestinian President Yasser Arafat 25 years ago, and an important cultural hub for Palestinians in Gaza with its theater, library, and event space. And Israel is destroying Gaza's future academic and cultural potential. Alongside the 352 Palestinian schools, it has damaged or destroyed the 4,037 students and 209 teachers and educational staff it has killed, alongside the other 7,259 students and 619 teachers it has injured. Israel has damaged or destroyed an estimated 318 Muslim and Christian religious sites, demolishing the places where Palestinians have worshipped for generations. These include the Great Omari Mosque, originally a 5th century Byzantine church, an iconic landmark of Gaza's history, architecture, and cultural heritage, and a place of worship by Christians and Muslims for over 1,000 years. Israeli shelling has also damaged the Church of St. Porphyrius, founded in 425 AD and believed to be the 3rd oldest church in the world, alongside 2 other churches that have sustained direct Israeli fire. Gaza's Christians themselves have been targeted and killed by Israel in the very church compound where they sought shelter. Many of these war crimes are being filmed by Israeli occupation forces and posted on social media for entertainment content.
This is a how-to video on how to blow up a mosque in Gaza. Format is internet fluent. The content is very real. Filmed, edited, and posted on Instagram by an Israeli soldier. It's one of dozens reviewed by CNN.
Friend of the show, Ugopnik, had a great video on this topic specifically. You should go watch that. Israel has killed and is killing Palestinian storytellers and poets, Palestinian farmers and fishermen, alongside Gaza's local legends. Pastry chef Masoud Muhammad al-Qahtadi, killed in an Israeli airstrike on his house on the 3rd of November 2023, whose shop's motto, "Let the poor eat," and reputation for giving away the popular Palestinian treat kanafa to indigent customers, earned him the nickname Father of the Poor. 84-year-old Elham Farah, from one of Palestine's oldest Christian families, a reputed accorditionist and music teacher known as Mother Orange to generations of Palestinian music students for her shock of red hair, shot dead by an Israeli sniper outside the Holy Family Church in Gaza City when she returned home for warm clothes and was left to bleed to death. And Al-Shaima Saidam, the student with the highest final high school exam grades in the whole of Palestine, killed with multiple members of her family in a strike on Al-Nusayrat refugee camp. Just as Israel is destroying the official memory and records of Palestinians in Gaza through its destruction of Gaza's archives and landmarks, it is obliterating Palestinian personal lives and private memories, histories, and futures through bombing and bulldozing graveyards, destroying family records and photographs, wiping out entire multi-generational families, and killing, maiming, and traumatizing a generation of children. As a Palestinian man in a video by UNRWA succinctly sums up, "These are all our memories, our entire lives. Now it's all gone. Everything has turned to ashes." The Israeli army erecting the Israeli flag over the wreckage of devastated Palestinian homes, towns, and cities, including in Gaza City's Palestine Square itself, and spurred on by calls from within the Israeli government and without to flatten Gaza and re-establish Israeli settlements on the rubble of Palestinian homes, is destroying the very fabric and basis of Palestinian life in Gaza. Israel is thereby deliberately inflicting on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life calculated to bring about its destruction. Yeah, I don't have much else to add to that. The final point, point 8, is imposing measures intended to prevent Palestinian births. As set out above, Israel's actions are impacting Palestinian women and children in Gaza especially severely, with 70% of those killed estimated to be women and children. 2 mothers are estimated to be killed every hour in Gaza. Over 7,729 children were estimated to have been killed by December 11th alone, and at least 4,700 other women and children are reported missing, believed to be buried under the rubble. There are multiple eyewitness accounts of pregnant women being killed by Israeli soldiers, including while trying to access health care. Pregnant women and children, including newborn babies, are also particularly impacted by displacement, lack of access to food and water, shelter, clothes, hygiene and sanitation, and lack of access to health services. These effects are severe and significant. An estimated 5,500 of approximately 52,000 pregnant Palestinian women in Gaza giving birth each month are doing so in unsafe conditions, often with no clean water, much less medical assistance, in shelters, in their homes, in the streets, amid rubble, or in overwhelmed healthcare facilities, where sanitation is worsening and the risk of infection and medical complications is on the rise. Where they are able to get a functioning hospital, pregnant women are having to undergo cesarean sections without anesthetic. Given the lack of access to critical medical supplies, including blood, doctors are being compelled to perform ordinarily unnecessary hysterectomies on young women in an attempt to save their lives, leaving them unable to have more children. The Minister of Health for the State of Palestine, Dr. May Al-Kaila, confirms that the only option facing Palestinian women in Gaza who bleed out after giving birth is to undergo a hysterectomy in order for their lives to be saved. Premature births have reportedly increased between 25 and 30% as stressed and traumatized pregnant women face a myriad of challenges, including being compelled to walk long distances in search of safety, attempting to escape from bombs, and being crowded into shelters and often squalid conditions. Particularly in northern Gaza, cases of placenta abruption, a serious condition that occurs to pregnant women during childbirth, which is potentially life-threatening to both mother and baby, have more than doubled. An ever-increasing number of Palestinian babies in Gaza are reportedly dying from entirely preventable causes brought about by Israel's actions. Newborns up to 3 months old are dying of diarrhea, hypothermia, and other preventable diseases without essential equipment and medical support. Premature and underweight babies have little to no chance of survival. Palestinian newborn babies have died due to the lack of fuel to supply hospital generators. Others have been found decomposing in their hospital cots, medical staff taking care of them having been forced by Israel to evacuate. On November 3rd, the World Health Organization warned that maternal deaths are expected to increase given the lack of access to adequate care, with deadly consequences on reproductive health, including a rise in stress-induced miscarriages, stillbirths, and premature births. The reproductive violence inflicted by Israel on Palestinian women, newborn babies, infants, and children could be qualified as acts of genocide under Article 2 of the Convention of Prevention of Genocide, including imposing measures intended to prevent births within a group. She stressed that states must prevent and punish such acts in accordance with their responsibilities under the Genocide Convention. So if after hearing all of that you still don't think there's any evidence of Israel conducting a genocide, I just want to ask how? How and why? I mean, his tweet did say intentional, Maybe all this stuff was on accident. Wait a minute, hold on, there's another section here. Expressions of genocidal intent against the Palestinian people by Israeli state officials and others. Evidence of Israeli state officials' specific intent to commit and persist in committing genocidal acts or to fail to prevent them has been significant and overt since October 2023. Those statements of intent, when combined with the level of killing, maiming, displacement, and destruction on the ground, together with the siege, evidence an unfolding and continuing genocide. This part of the document contains statements from basically every single person that works for the Israeli government that are genocidal in nature, if not overtly genocidal. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, notoriously described their military campaign as a struggle between the children of light and the children of darkness, between humanity and the law of the jungle. Later on, in a letter to Israeli soldiers that was also posted on Twitter, Netanyahu said that this is the war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. We will not let up on our mission until the light overcomes the darkness. The good will defeat the extreme evil that threatens us and the entire world. Later, we're facing monsters who murdered children in front of their parents. This is a battle not only of Israel against these barbarians, it's a battle of civilization against barbarism. In late October, Israeli forces were preparing their land invasion of Gaza, and the prime minister invoked the biblical story of the total destruction of Amalek by the Israelites, stating, "You must remember what Amalek has done to you," says our holy Bible, and we do remember. The prime minister referred again to Amalek in the letter sent on the 3rd of November to Israeli soldiers and officers. The relevant biblical passage reads as follows: "Now go, attack Amalek, and prescribe all that belongs to him. Spare no one, but kill alike men and women, infants and sucklings, oxen and sheep, camels and asses." I wonder what that means.
I fully believe that Benjamin Netanyahu is just out there for himself. And he doesn't want to go to jail. International crime, war crimes and all that. But I bet you in all reality, I bet if you actually discuss things with that man, he's more of a Christian than he is a Jew. Because as I keep saying over and over again, I don't know how any right-minded Jewish faith-having person can sit back and want to side with Zionist Christians. Because Zionist Christians, they want the end of the world. And when the end of the world comes, whoever is not converted and washed in the blood of Jesus Christ is going to burn in hell, or is going to go to hell forever and ever. Because their loving God decided you didn't love me enough, so you all need to go back because you didn't follow me. And it says that in the book of Revelations, only 144,000 Israelites will come to and realize that they need to repent and recognize Jesus as the Messiah. So, how many Jewish people live in Israel right now and around the world, and only 144,000 of them get to go to heaven? Maybe some people should start talking again, but who knows?
So what could that mean? Israel's president, Isaac Herzog, it's an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true, this rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved. It's absolutely not true, and we will fight until we break their backbone. He's also one of the many Israelis to have handwritten messages on bombs to be dropped on Gaza. The Minister of Defense said that they were imposing a complete siege on Gaza. No electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals, and we are acting accordingly. He also informed troops on the border that he had released all the restraints, saying that Gaza won't return to what it was before. We will eliminate everything. If it doesn't take one day, it will take a week, it will take weeks or even months. We will reach all places. He further announced that Israel was moving to a full-scale response and that he had removed every restriction on Israeli forces. When we say that Hamas should be destroyed, it also means those who celebrate, those who support, and those who hand out candy, they're all terrorists and they should also be destroyed. That was the Israeli Minister for National Security. All the civilian population in Gaza is ordered to leave immediately. We will win. They will not receive a drop of water or a single battery until they leave the world. No electrical switch will be turned on, no water hydrant will be opened, and no fuel truck will enter until the Israeli abductees are returned home. Humanitarianism for humanitarianism, and no one will preach us morality. This is the continued logic to justify war crimes, right? Taking civilian hostages is a war crime. Does that mean you can do war crimes to undo that? No. That's literally that. No, you can't. And what's being described there is a war crime, and they're doing it. They're doing that, and it's a war crime. We need to deal a blow that hasn't been seen in 50 years and take down Gaza. That was the Israeli Minister of Finance. The north of the Gaza Strip, more beautiful than ever. Everything is blown up and flattened, simply a pleasure for the eyes. We must talk about the day after. In my mind, we will hand over lots to all those who fought for Gaza over the years and to those evicted from Gush Katif, which is a former Israeli settlement. He later argued against humanitarian aid. We wouldn't hand the Nazis humanitarian aid, and there is no such thing as uninvolved civilians in Gaza. He also posited a nuclear attack on the Gaza Strip. The Israeli Minister of Agriculture invoked the Nakba, said they were doing it again for Gaza. We all have one common goal: erasing the Gaza Strip from the face of the earth. That was the Deputy Speaker of the Knesset and member of the Foreign Affairs and Security Committee. It's not just politicians, though. Of course, it's also military officials. Hamas became ISIS, and the citizens of Gaza are celebrating instead of being horrified. Human animals are dealt with accordingly. Israel has imposed a total blockade on Gaza. No electricity, no water, just damage. You wanted hell, you will get hell. That was the Israeli Army Coordinator of Government Activities in the territories. We cut the supply of energy, water, and diesel to the Strip, but it's not enough. In order to make the siege effective, we have to prevent others from giving assistance to Gaza. The people should be told that they have two choices: to stay and to starve, or to leave. If Egypt and other countries prefer that these people will perish in Gaza, this is their choice. When you are at war with another country, you don't feed them, you don't provide them with electricity or gas or water or anything else. A country can be attacked in a much broader way to bring the country to the brink of dysfunction. This is the necessary outcome of events in Gaza. Israel has no interest in the Gaza Strip being rehabilitated, and this is an important point that needs to be made clear to the Americans. If we ever want to see the hostages alive, the only way is to create a severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza. He called for the destructions of water treatment plants. Much like President Herzog, this guy has repeatedly underscored that there should be no distinction between Hamas combatants and Palestinian civilians. Who are the poor women of Gaza? They are all the mothers, sisters, or wives of Hamas murderers. On the one hand, they are part of the infrastructure that supports the organization, and on the other hand, if they experience a humanitarian disaster, then it can be assumed that some of the Hamas fighters and the more junior commanders will begin to understand that the war is futile. These kind of statements are, not only evil and genocidal, but they're also just wrong. Hamas is not going to be eliminated. That's just not going to happen. That's not how this works.
We always create our future enemies, no matter who we are. It has happened since the first time that some more powerful person took over in the tribe and decided that they were going to go attack another tribe. Not to protect themselves, but to take from that other tribe. This is why a lot of the people, and even in the Bible, God says when he sends Joshua and everyone into the land of Judea and into Israel, he wants them to wipe out complete and total peoples and populations, because if you leave anybody alive, you're creating your own future enemy. And if that's the case, then what's the point? So you have to just wipe them out. That's why Israel is talking about wiping them out, is because if they leave any of them alive, then this just continues.
troops. It's been 4 straight months of relentless bombardment in northern Gaza. Israel claimed that Hamas had been dismantled there and pulled troops, but they have continually resurfaced. The last thing I want to read here is a quote-unquote motivational speech that an Israeli army reservist made that's just, I don't know, it's just fucking sickening. Be triumphant and finish them off, and don't leave anyone behind. Erase the memory of them. Erase them, their families, mothers, and children. These animals can no longer live. Every Jew with a weapon should go out and kill them. If you have an Arab neighbor, don't wait. Go to his home and shoot him. We want to invade, not like before. We want to enter and destroy what's in front of us, and destroy houses, then destroy the one after it. With all of our forces, complete destruction, enter and destroy. As you can see, we will witness things we've never dreamed of. Let them drop bombs on them and erase them. This guy was called up by the army to give motivational speeches. This was broadcast on social media. It's just incomprehensible that it's just that mask off, you know? It actually really isn't, though, when you understand how Israeli soldiers and settlers talk about Palestinians and the sorts of evils they've afflicted upon them in the past and will continue to do so in the future.
שלקחו את הלוויורים ורדפו אחרי חבר'ה ושרפו אותם. זה היה משהו זוועתי, וזה אסור לספר, אני לא אדבר על זה, כי זה יכול להיות סקנדל שלם מהעניין הזה. 3-4 חודשים הראשונים הייתי רוצח.
מה זה אומר?
אני לא לקחתי שבויים. בזמן קרב, אם מישהו הרים ידיים, משהו כזה. לא לקחתי שבויים. אם היה עומדת כיתה של זה עם ידיים למעלה, אז באותו יום הייתי רואה אותי, הייתי קוצר את כולם, עד כדי כך.
כמה אתה חושב אנשים הרגת ככה?
לא ספרתי. לא יכול לדעת בחיי. היה לי מקלע עם 250 כדורים. תראה, יריתי, נלחמתי כולם. לא יכול לספור.
This list goes on and on and on, and I hope by now at least some of you are able to look at this and say, you know, maybe there's some evidence in there. I don't know what better evidence you can have of genocidal intent than looking into the camera and saying, I want to do a genocide. We want to do a genocide. We want to kill everybody. We want to do it right now as soon as we can. And then immediately taking actions over and over and over again that are meant to achieve that goal. How much fucking clearer does it get, man? We're going to return now to a few more of Destiny's tweets because, you know, that's the point of this video, to look at an influencer's tweets and call him dumb. Not use drama farming as a Trojan horse to read the ICJ application that lays out a pretty compelling case that Israel is committing genocide. That's not the point of this video. We're here to farm. Omar Badar is another person who responded to that initial tweet from Destiny. He wrote, your obsession with litigating the applicability of the word genocide here without adequate legal background is getting in the way of a bigger point. Genocide or not, there is no dispute that Israel is committing horrific war crimes in its deliberate war on Palestinian civilians. Destiny responded, writing, I mean, it's possible that the IDF is, but the other side is committing a fuck ton of war crimes for sure. It's possible? It's possible? Aside from the fucking CEO of the Israeli War Crimes Institute for Defending War Crimes College, Destiny is the only guy casting doubt on the assertion that Israel is committing war crimes. They're on video. When it comes to Hamas's war crimes, it's for sure. He's very sure about that. When it comes to Israel's, maybe. I don't know. Who's to say? Who's to say? The other absurd part about this tweet is him saying that no one cares about holding Hamas responsible. My brother in Christ, what do you think Israel thinks it's doing? Literally, the only reason this genocide is still going on is because Israel is saying that they are, quote unquote, large quotes, holding Hamas responsible. Also, you know, the United States, virtually every Western media apparatus, that's why every major interview has to start off with 12 minutes of the host telling the guests to condemn Hamas, condemn Hamas, condemn Hamas. Come on, do you condemn Hamas? Another person responded to that tweet writing, since when does death toll in an active war not count? Destiny replied saying, question mark, going to war is not genocide. People die in war, that doesn't make it genocide. Civilians die in war, that doesn't make it genocide. Even if you commit war crimes and target civilians, that's not genocide. So here's just sort of milking the one thing he's been technically correct on, which is that death tolls alone are not the same thing as genocide. They're not, but also no qualified commentator in this discussion is saying that. I personally don't consider a random 700-follower Twitter user to be a qualified commentator, but that's just me personally, I guess. He likes to do this thing. He does a few other tweets. Somebody wrote, paraphrasing him, if you commit war crimes and target civilians, that's not genocide. Lamau. He responded writing, how fucking stupid are people? Hey, come on, man. Relax. Jesus. Yes, why would you think you're making a point here? What do you even think genocide is? Just killing civilians? Once again, the original statement taken on its own as a tweet is technically incorrect. You know, war crimes and civilian targeting usually are a part of genocide. Actually using the term requires other factors. But also, he here took an incomplete version of this person's argument. A minute after that first tweet, they replied to their own tweet writing, "There's actually a wealth of evidence that Israeli forces are committing genocide. All of it was used and quoted in the ICJ. The war crimes and civilian targeting in the original tweet are clearly referencing a specific application which does display genocide." He didn't respond to that original tweet, and you could see why, right? The tweet makes his big epic dunk a moot point. Here you might say, well, no, he maybe just didn't see that second tweet. And it's like, maybe, but also, you know, it was tweeted a minute after. And the first thing you see when you click on a tweet is replies from the original author. I think the more likely explanation is just that it's easier to pick incomplete criticism to dunk on. It's just you want to win. You win. You win that point. You win that point in response. Congratulations. But you won in the most annoying and inconsequential way possible. One wonders how someone like this ends up getting divorced very publicly and then making hours and hours of content talking about his ex-wife. I mean, it's just, you know, normal stuff, cool stuff. Another response to that first tweet was someone saying, if Nazi Germany wanted to genocide all the Jews, then they would only exist in the history books, Destiny circa 1943. Again, he's just quoting the logic back. We did that earlier, you know? How does Destiny respond to this? Well, he does it by doing a sneaky little switcheroo. The Jewish population still hasn't recovered from the Holocaust, a genocide lasting a few years that's some 80 years old. Israel has been continually genociding Palestinians for decades, and yet their population continues to grow every single day. The first tweet stipulated total annihilation, remember? That was the definition he used, but when someone responds doing the same thing, he does a switcheroo. He backpedals from a population that only exists in the history books to a population that has not recovered in growth. That's not what you said, bro. Normal stuff, cool stuff. In the future, when the dust settles about what's going on right now, what's happening to Palestinians, insofar as it needs to settle, I think anyone paying attention, there's no dust. I do wonder what guys like this will be up to, you know? Like his grandkid, Beyonce Jr., comes up to him at the cabin, sits up on his knee and says, hey, Pup, where were you during the Palestinian genocide? And he'll be like, well, kiddo, I was in my gamer chair trying to convince everybody that it wasn't happening. And then Beyonce Jr. will say, why'd you do that? What the fuck, man? And he'll say, because I didn't want to be wrong. So, also it helped me pull 20 million views a month, so there's that. It'll be fine, though, you know, big fan base, following the pathway of warmongering liberalism. Every lib journalist that foamed at the mouth to invade Iraq, they're like tenured professors, and they work at the Washington Post and write op-eds for that War Crime College Institute place we talked about earlier. No, I'm not coming on your stream. I don't want to get destroyed in the marketplace of ideas, but also that's probably a good thing. The last guy I debated live on stream ended up having animated child porn on his computer. I don't think anyone wants to be exposed for that, so lose the battle, win the war, so they say. Anyways, see you guys. Have a good one. Bye. In its onslaught on Gaza since the October 7th attacks, Israel has killed over 31,000 Palestinian people. Of those 31,000 people that Israel has killed, over 12,300 of them are children. This means that Israel has killed more children in the past 4 months than have been killed in every war on this earth combined.
Investigation of what's on.
Their tablet. Hey folks, did you know that detergent pods are also wrapped in plastic? Yep, that film around those pods are plastic, and they end up in our oceans, our rivers, and our soils, and you know, it's on all your dishes.
In our bodies.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, I don't mean to discredit it with the crazy guy's voice. In our bodies.
Yeah. Blue Land is on a mission to eliminate single-use plastic by reinventing cleaning essentials to be better for you and the planet with the same powerful clean you're used to. Blue Land uses no single-use plastic in any component, from bottles, tablets, and wrappers to shipping. Their tablet packaging is fully compostable, and Blue Land products are effective and affordable. Their dishwasher tablets are proven to perform on baked-on, burnt-out stains. No rinse aid is needed, and you can feel good about what's washing
the dishes that you use. You can get even more savings by buying refills in bulk or setting up a subscription. The subscriptions are customizable and convenient, so you never run out of your most used products. Blue Land is trusted in over 1 million homes, including mine, including this office. We use it all over the office. I also use it for my dishes and my dishwasher at home. It comes in a really cute little blue tin. You can save that tin. You can use it for other things. You know, I don't know what, but it's cute. That's all. Blue Land has a special offer for listeners right now. Get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/majority. You won't want to miss this. Blueland.com/majority for 15% off. That's blueland.com/majority to get 15% off. And now, time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Cedar.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, November 7th, 2024. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Cedar, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Daniel Nickanian of Bolts Magazine will be back with us to talk about the extant House races, as well as election results on the state level. And later in the show, Usama Andrabi of Justice Democrats joins us to talk about the path forward for the Democratic Party. Also on the program, Harris concedes the election to Trump and manages not to incite a riot at the Capitol. So the blame game begins. Longtime Democratic strategists go on record to say it's Biden's fault for seeking re-election, despite his unpopularity and age, which I 100% agree with. Exit polling shows a majority of white women, even with abortion on the ballot, voted for Trump again. And abortion measures outperformed Harris in almost every state, meaning those women voted to protect abortion where they live, but not nationally. Bob Casey has a glimmer of hope as the Pennsylvania count continues. And luckily, it looks like Jackie Rosen will hold on in Nevada, as well as Baldwin in Wisconsin. But the race for the House is still unclear. Republicans have an edge, but Hakeem Jeffries says there's still a glimmer of hope. This is important because without the House, Trump has unchecked power, basically. Netanyahu sucks up to Trump on social media, gleeful that his preferred candidate won.
Israel's preferred candidate.
Yep.
In general.
Oh, the
by
whole
landslide.
population. Redder, when you poll them, redder than the reddest state in the country, basically. Liberal democracy, I was told. I don't know. Trump begins vetting his cabinet. Mike Pompeo may return as Secretary of State. That's a name floated. His team reiterates their intention to mass deport millions right after his inauguration and drill baby drill. The Justice Department begins winding down its criminal cases against Trump in anticipation of him taking office. And that November 26th sentencing date in the hush money case in which he was convicted is being scrapped. Trump is expected to roll back Biden's more aggressive antitrust enforcement, meaning Lena Khan is likely gone. It's so funny because J.D. Vance was saying how much he likes her. And the child tax credit, for that matter, which he didn't show up to vote for. And lastly, stay safe, California. Wildfires are moving dangerously fast in Southern California today. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's an Majority Report Thursday. Hello. Hello. Yesterday was a very difficult show. We're going to try to strike a tone today that's about moving forward, even though I think it's a different reaction to 2016 because I think people were surprised and shocked and angered. And this time it's more just resignation and depression about where we truly are.
I am a little bit in a different place, whereas I think this is the pattern that people pointed to after 2016 and were ignored. The amount of people who said, Tara Raghavir, who is of KC Tenants, tweeted out, retweeted herself from 2022 saying, hey, if addressing inflation isn't enough if you don't do something about, say, rent prices and things like that. And instead we just decided to run a status quo presidency, and I don't know. It's time to kick a lot of these bums out that ran this campaign.
Yep. It's there will be a lot of autopsies done about what happened in this race. I think the primary narrative that we're seeing is the economy. A lot of elite media folks told people that the economy was doing amazing, and for people trading on Wall Street, there were the traditional capitalist measures of how the economy was doing did indicate that the economy was doing well. But for people who have to pay rent, for people who have to pay groceries, they were furious at the administration. And can you pop up this graph here? This is really instructive because once basically the Republicans took back the House and the COVID recovery was abandoned by the administration, you see this drop off here. Build Back Better being the central vision of the platform to start from 2020 into the beginning of 2022. And then, of course, Manchin and Sinema torpedoed much of it. But once again, the more austerity politics took hold, and Biden tried to fashion himself as a modern LBJ by also supporting a disastrous foreign policy, bloody endeavor, and bloating the Pentagon budget, both for Ukraine, but also to support Israel. Things turned, and the child tax credit expired.
Inflation concern, and they decided, Biden, again, this chat is in emphases. He goes from emphasizing Build Back Better to national debt and deficit reduction. And how do we reduce that deficit, so-called? It was by not pursuing, say, or locking in the expanded child tax credit that have child poverty. So guess what happened to child poverty when it expired? It doubled.
It doubled. And then we were told all the time about how good the economy is doing. And that's going to be, I think, the main story. And it's part of the anti-incumbency backlash that you're seeing globally. And it's a failure of liberalism. And Harris took over an incumbent campaign, was shoehorned into it because Biden dropped out at the 11th hour. And she ran with his consultants. Who knows if she had actually run in a legitimate primary and there had been other candidates, like if Biden had done what he promised, that he would be a bridge candidate, what could have happened? There could have been a primary where people even knew who she was. I mean, you would be shocked. There are millions of Americans that have no idea who Kamala Harris is. And
the ones who do, can they say what she was actually running for besides not being Trump?
And so she was extremely disadvantaged in that way. And in the primary, she still would have been the favorite, right? But she would have had to develop a vision outside of continuing the Biden administration, which was unpopular. And that was the biggest problem, it appears, thus far in this race. you know, and I will reiterate this. It's not something I think people love to hear, but I just feel it in my bones. Like there was misogyny at play here as well. I don't know how we can say that the Trump campaign that was cheering on calling her a C word with their super PAC ads, and Trump laughing in the final days about how Kamala worked on a corner, to discount the role that misogyny played here, especially when she had higher favorables than someone like Hillary Clinton, you begin to see a bit of a through line. And it could have been different if Biden was more popular, right? In the way that AMLO is with Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico. Him leaving with a 60% approval rating and having a more popular agenda and handing it off to a woman as a successor, that advantaged her in that situation. Kamala was carrying the baggage of a really unpopular administration, and I think that opened a lot of the door for this misogyny. And what concerns me is definitely also what you see with men 18 to 29 who seem to be really buying into this. And we've been sounding the alarm about this on this program for a while. The manosphere, the
going to get off here for a little bit.
The edgelord stuff. And this is an entirely different media and communications environment that the Democrats need to reckon with here. You know, as I said, her turnout her door knocking